Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Voice of College Football channel. We are here with a special preseason edition of our USC postgame show to talk about the big news today. If you haven't heard already, joining USC and UCLA in the Big Ten is going to be Oregon and Washington. So, as you guys have probably heard, if you haven't, Oregon and Washington were in discussions with the Big Ten as a result of the Pac-12's lackluster media deal. And we'll talk a little bit more. We've said it was always in the hands of the Big Ten presidents. And this morning they reached an agreement. And just moments ago, Pete Thamel is reporting, literally moments ago from when we went live here, the Big Ten's Council of Presidents and Chancellors has voted to accept Oregon and Washington into the Big Ten. So they are joining us. Tim and LBC are with me, the co-hosts of the USC postgame shows. It'll be live after the game all season long. Guys, what do you think? The Dogs and the Ducks are joining us in the Big Ten.
It's like we're getting the band back together, right? That ever seen the Blues Brothers? Is exactly the scene I thought of when I saw the news break that Oregon and Washington are coming. Let's face it, I wish all of them could come. This is kind of it's bittersweet and then bittersweet again. I mean, I was actually starting to look forward to playing either Ohio State or Michigan every other year. But at the same time, bringing the Dogs in, bringing Oregon in, two teams that have been with USC forever, is a nice compromise for the situation.
Well, this is, Brett Yormark gets a lot of credit for the carnival barking that he's been doing and where he's been shopping at the thrift store, the Pac-12 thrift store. How about Tony Petitti? In like 24 hours, he was able to get two of the top four teams in the Pac-12 in the last decade, pulls them into the Big Ten, and it took George Kliavkoff 13 months to try to get a deal done, and Petitti's done it in 24 hours. I mean, that blows Yormark out of the water, and he actually picked up some prize jewels in Oregon and Washington. So it's kind of funny how with these TV networks, how fast they can get a deal done when they want to do a deal.
Well, that brings up a big question, Rick, is did they really want a deal done? You guys, the old saying, right? Why buy the cow when you get the milk for free? I'm not saying, but I've heard some people allege, and I'm not saying this happened. It's kind of weird that with the brand names, we're seeing now that Washington and Oregon are clearly teams that Fox values, because this is a Fox move. Don't get anything wrong. Don't get anything twisted. So they did. I mean, we talked about this for a long time. The fact that, there were still some really valuable brands in the Pac-12. Really, if you look at all the brands out there, if you mix together the Pac-12 and the Big 12, the biggest names weren't in the Big 12. They were in the Pac-12. And we're seeing two of them getting that golden ticket, albeit a half price. We'll talk about that later. But they're getting that pass to come in the golden ticket and join the party with USC and UCLA.
And not only that, but this is something that we talked about on this channel a long time ago. So this is actually funny enough. I don't know if you remember this, Tim. This is a slide we put up I think it was July 1st, 2022, on this channel. And we said if we were the Big Ten, we would have gone for Oregon, Washington, Stanford, Cal, Notre Dame. Notre Dame is not interested in it right now. Stanford and Cal are, kind of reeling. So, we'll see what happens. But as we take a look at the Pac-12, it is currently split in three between the Big Ten. What's left is the Pac-4. There, by the way, supposedly is a board meeting this afternoon of the Pac-4 presidents. And the Pac-4 presidents will figure out what they're going to do. It's not going to be on Apple. We'll see. And then finishing out the Pac-12, the Big 12. Of course, Colorado joined about a week ago. Again, we were told Arizona has apparently accepted, or some degree of accepted, last night into this morning. And then they are waiting on final approval tonight, supposedly, for Arizona State and Utah to join the Big 12. So that will split the Pac-12 into three. We on this channel always said it was up to the Big Ten. And we heard this morning, for those of you guys that were following along with the news this morning, that the Pac-12 thought it might stay together until the Big Ten came and took Oregon and Washington. So, guys, has it always been in the Big Ten's hands?
It just came down to a couple of things. All the hand wringing going on around the country about the Pac-12 being dissolved. Let's face it. Does anyone here really believe that the ACC would not also being ripped apart right now if it wasn't for that grant of rights they have? I mean, I saw Uncle Lou's comment. He's made that a couple times now. FSU is the only thing stopping Florida State from joining the SEC or the Big Ten is that grant of rights. But they made it very clear they're trying everything they can to get out of it. How feasible that is, I don't know. I'll leave that to all the lawyers, all the people who want to talk about that number stuff. But the fact that is the ACC is still alive because of that grant of rights. So we all said it was a stupid contract and a bad grant of rights also. But in reality, maybe it was the smartest one of all to lock it up till 36 because maybe they saw it was going to be happening. What do you think, Rick?
Well, and what has Florida State come out on Wednesday and talked about? The president of the university, along with board of trustees, were basically saying that it's not a question of if, it's when, that they have to get out of the contract. And they talked about being $30 million behind every year. And there has to be some type of revenue distribution. Something has to happen. Well, that's what USC and UCLA were talking about back in 2009 about. And at that time, you know, a lot of people didn't like USC because we won too much, but we actually built the brand. We built the Pac-12. We allowed the Pac-10 to become the Pac-12. It's almost the Pac-16. And I know people don't like to hear that. And hey, this old guy's talking about what happened 15 years ago, but USC kicked ass. There was one team that was feared. Everybody knows who that is. And the other teams that were in the Big Ten or the Pac-10 at the time hated USC and UCLA because of the old way of doing business under Tom Hansen. We got the eyeballs, so we got a disproportionate share of the revenue. So all the other teams were very excited with Larry Scott, who was the academic from the WTA Harvard grad, who basically said, no, we're going to have our own TV network and we're going to have equal revenue sharing, and the tide lifts all boats. And isn't that kind of funny that Florida State on Wednesday comes out and look what's happening? So you got what you got, and Michael Crow doubled down, and he extended Larry Scott in 2017, never got a distribution deal. Larry Scott, the Pac-12 presidents, and Michael Crow destroyed this conference. And isn't it funny, Michael Crow is leaving to the Big 12. They should take him at a 25% share, and basically you've got damaged goods that's going to be on probation.
I wonder.
Yeah, they're going to get a nasty probation.
Well, I'm just curious how it's all going to mix out, you guys. I'm wondering when all the news really, I mean, how much we'll ever find out what's gone on the past year. I mean, let's face it, as soon as this goes back years, right? This plan, I hate to say it, just seems like there was really a lot of machinations behind. Anyone thinks that this thing just happened organically, dude, I've got a bridge for sale because I'm not buying that. There was a plan behind this entire thing all along. And before people start talking foil.
Here's the other thing. If you add up, and our friend Fred, a great friend of the show, Tide Guy, has done this. If you add up what the Big Ten is spending on Washington and Oregon, and what the Big 12 is spending on Utah and like the three worst teams in the conference, it's more than you would have had to pay to get to just buy the whole Pac-12 and put it on TV.
Absolutely. And that's where the fraud is right there. That's the total fraud, that you can get a deal done in what? A little over a week, and you have 8 of the 12 schools are going to new conferences. That's that's suspicious. That is fraudulent. That is a monopoly,
or at least an oligarchy, right? I mean, they got these two little guys at the top that are calling all the shots, and sure, NBC's popping in here, and sure, CBS has a hand in it, but this has been really orchestrated by ESPN and Fox the entire time, starting with Oklahoma and Texas, then UCLA and USC, and then just mysteriously, there was no linear deal whatsoever for these brands that are, by the way, being invited to the Pac-12. I mean, to the Big Ten right away. I don't know. It just seems a bit weird to me.
And really quick, to answer this question, John Sarian's asking, Oregon and Washington are coming as fully paid members. The rumor, and we have not gotten a final number announced from an official source, from the officials from the conference. Supposedly, Oregon and Washington are going to come in at about half shares, and then that will escalate over time. So probably very similar to what happened with Rutgers and Maryland. But that's still more than they would get from the Big 12 and more than they would get from the Pac-12 and more than they would get from the ACC. So they're better paid than anybody else who's not in the Big 10 or the SEC. So it sounds like it's a win for Washington, Oregon. Now, Washington, we understand, supposedly was upset last night about the fact that because this is going to cost Washington, for example, they were estimating extra $10 million in travel. Which is same thing as USC and UCLA. Of course, the Big Ten money pays for that. So as Washington escalates, that will, or escalates in their escalator clauses, that will help a lot. So it'll be interesting, guys. One of the heartbreaking things here: Wazoo and the Beavs, Stanford and Cal. Really sad, I think, for those four great schools, great fan bases, great programs. Where do they go from here?
Rick, you want to go first? I'll jump in then. I just see this.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I just see this as, again, like I talked about, the Pac-12 for a long time. I'm sure the networks wanted to get rid of some of the smaller markets a long time ago. This just reeks of me of just grabbing the top four and then pulling them out. And then it looks like the Big 12 is going to gobble up the stuff, the ones that are the at the bottom. And then you have schools like Stanford and Cal, who, I mean, let's face it, they have great fans, but do they really? I mean, it's true. I mean, Stanford, they don't play football the way everyone else plays football. They never really have. And now that you have NIL that they really don't want to get messy with, now that you have the transfers, even they had trouble getting grad transfers in and stuff like that. They're not pulling in random guys. They didn't have JUCO back in the day either. They've always done it differently, and I've always respected. It's hard for me to say as a Trojan fan, but I've really appreciated how they have been able to be successful. And with that great strong brand, an incredible university, but they're just not meant. At this time, and who knows what could change. If Stanford ever committed to actually doing this, like the way everyone else does, if they didn't tie not both arms and both legs behind their back and say, yeah, sure, we want to do football, they would probably crush almost everybody out there. I don't know how to tell everybody. Stanford has been excellent within the past 10 years, given even the fact that they are playing with 1-2 arms behind their back. So, and Cal, you go back, 15 years, they had some really strong teams. So I don't know. I'm a bit confused where everyone's thinking they're going to be left out. I think if they're left out, Tony, Idrick, I think they're choosing to be left out. That's what I would say.
That's a possibility. We don't know what's going to happen with Cal and Stanford. It's only Friday, a little bit before 3:30 on the Pacific time zone. This is very fluid, but I really feel for Oregon State and Washington State, Cal and Stanford, and I'm sure there's a lot of speculation of what's going to happen with the Mountain West, the last four schools. Who really knows? But this is definitely. I heard an interesting take, and you guys might remember the name Daryl Gross. He was the assistant AD at USC under Mike.
Oh yeah, they went to Syracuse.
And he went to Syracuse. Well, he's now at the AD of Cal State LA, and he was on the radio earlier this afternoon, about 3 hours ago, on a local radio station here, and he basically said, "Look, Florida State, like what I talked about earlier in the show, Florida State's having the same issue that USC and UCLA were talking about back in 2009 with equal revenue sharing. Now, granted, it's a different sport." But the Yankees and Milwaukee Brewers are not created equal. They have their own TV contracts, right? They have their regional TV contracts. And they operate within Major League Baseball. College football is different. Each conference has their own television network, but each conference is responsible for how the revenue from those TV media rights is distributed. And they changed that formula back with the when the Pac-10 became the Pac-12. He asked the simple question. He said, look, if Oregon and Washington were the first two schools to leave and USC and UCLA remained, would the Pac-12 still be here today? And I thought that was interesting. And yes, it would be. they would backfill. They'd get two other schools, and the Pac-12 would still be here today. But again, you have to look at Larry Scott. He was the one who came in and sold the idea, the concept at the time that was state of the art of owning your own television network. It didn't work. It took him more than 7 years, and he still couldn't get a DirecTV, a carriage deal. He ended up leaving the Pac-12 after 11 years, making $50 million. Okay, that was his total compensation. And isn't that ironic? Because who's going to pay the $50 million that Comcast is owed? So it's just a joke. It's sad. It's really sad.
Now, hey, we got a Gixxer Squid, awesome friend of the show, devout Trojan, fight on Gixxer Squid, points out, let's not ignore student success. How does all this impact the student experience, recruiting, academic success? What do incoming recruits feel? I'll tell you, my impression, and I was listening to Softy Mailer and a couple other, Washington writers and listening to some Oregon writers. I think Washington, Oregon fans are over the moon. I think the Washington and Oregon recruits are over the moon. This is the best thing that happened to Oregon recruiting, to the detriment of our Trojans, maybe a little bit. Probably the best thing that could happen to Oregon recruiting. And it sounds like, Washington and Oregon know what USC and UCLA are doing, and to help take care of that student experience, will probably, I would imagine, they'll just copy it.
I just wonder how much this has been out there. Again, with these moves, with the big money, like it was kind of weird. USC traditionally, I know we were getting our crap together with our AD, started throwing, decided to throw $100 million at Lincoln Riley, and now you also had that big extension for Lanning up in Oregon recently, and holding on to Lanning and Lanning wanting to stay there. And I do think the Oregon's already recruiting very well. I think they're like 12, 13, 14 in that range as far as nationally. I wonder if they've been telling the recruits, hey, look, hang on, news coming. I don't think that any of this is just, we're all hearing about it now. I wonder what the presidents and what the athletic departments knew going back, even with speculation. There was a lot, I bet there was a lot of positive vibes going through those departments, knowing that eventually it's going to happen. And I wonder, going all the way back, and we thought it was all weird, Tony, like we said, that's weird, just USC and UCLA going. Who knows? This I think this whole thing has been in the works. It's being released to us piecemeal to be probably as strategic as possible for the TV revenue and contracts as possible. But I think a lot of these machinations behind the scenes have been out there and open for a while.
Yeah, and apparently the word that we've been told is that the Big Ten stuff really just picked up in the last couple days, and last night is when it really came to a head. So they say the Big Ten did not want to kill the Pac. So we'll see. Another comment.
Tony.
Yep.
Tony, they were waiting for Arizona to do it so they could have their nice clean hands. But then when it looked like maybe Arizona was having second thoughts and kind of hemming and hawing, they said, you know what? No, I guess we'll have to do it anyway.
Well, and that's one of the things that was really interesting, was listening today to a lot of reports that the Pac schools were going to hold together. They were not looking for the Big 12 move. They wanted to avoid it, and it didn't really happen until the Big Ten finally said, all right, we are going to take Oregon and Washington. Who wanted to go there? And speaking of Washington, Sergeant Pickles bow down to Washington. He says, you can't get rid of me. Go Dogs. We're I'll tell you. So as we're here as our USC team right now, USC Trojans Live on the channel. So we are celebrating the great news, I think, for Washington, Oregon. We're also sad for our friends and our viewers and our Voice of College Football community from Wazoo and from Oregon State, from Cal and from Stanford, who are currently in some limbo. But as Trojans, we join you in celebrating, and welcome to the family. Welcome back to the family.
Congrats, again, Sergeant Pickles. I know we were trading messages earlier today on, I guess now it's X, right? But I was joking with them that they'd be happy to take 40%, and Sergeant Pickles agreed. So I don't know what number they're going to get, even if it's 40%. If they're getting Maryland or Rutgers dough, they're happy because they actually have a landing spot. And you know what? It's financially better for the Big Ten and the 3 networks or 4 networks, whatever it's going to be. It's messed up. It's a weird day. I don't know how to react. The thing that's frustrating me is this didn't have to happen. And I know a lot of people say, well, USC, they're the ones that blow up the Pac-12. Total BS. If that's what you want to believe, then you don't know business 101. All right, you don't understand it. And again, listen to what Florida State's saying right now, because they're locked in a bad deal, another bad deal for 13 years. And we were in a bad deal that didn't have distribution. That's like making the greatest beer in the world, and you can't get distribution in the bars or the grocery stores. Oh, guess what? You got 7-Elevens in the convenience stores. Great. Nobody can find my beer. Nobody can drink it. That's what the Pac-12 was subjected to. That's what USC was subjected to in UCLA.
Well, and the other thing, let's just have a minute of some date. We talked about this a little bit on the Pac-12 show the other night. Just a little bit of deja vu, particularly given the Huskies. This is not the first time this happened. So this literally happened in exactly the same order in the 1950s, except Cal was part of it, where USC and UCLA, to really more about money than anything else, decided to leave the Pacific Coast Conference, and then they were joined shortly after by Washington. And then
sorry.
Go ahead, Tim. Go ahead.
I was just going to go ahead and finish your point because I want to go back to what Rick was saying.
Oh, I was going to say, and then later brought in the Oregon schools, as Washington State and the Oregon schools as well. So they're really this people are acting like this is very unprecedented. Not only is it not unprecedented, it literally happened just like this when they created the Pac.
Yeah, and I just want to point out one thing that Rick was saying very eloquently, and to put an exclamation point. If one team is your conference, you don't have a conference. You got one team. So don't anyone wants to make the excuse that USC did this, that USC destroyed the conference. The idea that there's just one team that can destroy a conference, does it really mean you do have a conference? So be careful what you're saying, because you're really putting your own team down when you say that.
Well, and not only that, but the Pac-12 should have been just fine. They had better, decent money TV deals in February and March that they didn't bother to act on, and they wanted to be finicky and nuancy, and they didn't act on it. They had more than plenty of opportunities to expand. Again, we covered it. We talked about it. We were being told by executives of the conference that they were expecting to add SMU and San Diego State. This is entirely a failure by the Pac-12's leaders, which then has allowed the Big Ten to say, okay, well, we'll come in and we'll take Oregon and Washington. This is entirely on the Pac-12, not at all on USC and UCLA. Now, if we want to go way back and we can talk about, this happened in 2011 when Bill Moose screwed it up. It's funny. Bill Moose from Washington State was the athletic director who set the conference really on the bad path with Larry Scott. And then Kirk Schultz was also from Washington State, who sort of has sat here running the show while it fell and collapsed. So, it's on them. They had it all set and they blew it. Nobody wanted to leave.
Here's a good example. I saw this quote earlier today. This was at 2018 Pac-12 Media Days, 5 years ago. And this was Larry Scott. 1 year after Michael Crow extended him for an additional 5 years. Thanks, Michael Crow. But Larry Scott was quoted as saying this: to see the consolidation happening in the industry where ESPN/Disney, Fox, Turner, now owned by AT&T, are going to have more resources to buy sports rights. Couldn't be more delighted with where we are strategically in the fact that we're the only conference in the country that come 2024 is going to have all of our rights back for complete control, and we're going to be able to adapt and take advantage of this new world media order that's coming in a way others can't. How prophetic is that? That is the type of buffoonery, the leadership that we had from Larry Scott. He was predicting that we're going to be at the head of, what do you call it? The new world media order that's going to take place in 2024. Well, there you go, Larry Scott. And Michael Crow, nice assist. Enjoy life in the Big 12. You're going to be ridiculed by all those fan bases because you're a hypocrite.
Well, the other thing is, in some ways, Larry Scott was almost like 20 years too early. You know, I will say one thing about the Pac-12 leaders that I will give them a little credit for is recognizing that this, you know, Amway model from Apple was not a good thing. One of the issues that I think people have to remember, a friend of mine who's a stand-up comedian gave actually a great comment on this. He said he doesn't do stand-up shows where you only get paid if you bring an audience. You know, it's not, you're not paying for your pay-per-view. And so the thing is these schools are not media companies. And Larry Scott thought the Pac-12 was going to be a media company. And that was dumb because they're not. And your job is to be like the actor. Your job is to be the product and put the product on the football field. It's the job of the network to then sell that to advertisers and all that. And that is what I thought was just a really, really bad screw up on the Pac-12's part for even thinking about this. Just real quick, this is going to be a big cringe. Guys, when Maryland plays Oregon, are they going to have to hand out those little eclipse glasses for your eyes? They can protect your eyes from looking too closely.
That's going to be rough.
I'm just teasing, Michael. I actually like the Maryland uniforms. I don't like the Oregon uniforms, but I like the Maryland.
Under Armour versus Nike?
It's Under Armour versus Nike.
Oh, God.
The mothership of Under Armour versus the mothership of Nike.
Tony, did you get that last super chat from Badger?
Oh no, we have another one. I'm sorry. Thank you, Badger. I missed that one. Nope. He points out, so 2 G5 conference champs make the playoff first 2 years because the top 6 get an auto bid. So it depends on what happens with the Pac. The Pac-12 will still be an autonomous conference if they continue to exist. So if they backfill, they still have the NCAA autonomy status. But in the first 2 years of the playoffs, it will be the top 2. Well, it'll be the top 6 conference champions. So presumably it would be the Big 10, SEC, ACC, and Big 12 champions, plus 2 other conference champions. So we'll see what the Pac-12 does. I mean, the thing is we look at it. I mean, if Stanford's got this great recruiting class, Oregon State they won 10 games last year. People are already projecting them into the conference championship game maybe this year. So they're still going to have a couple of good teams. And if they fill up with SMU, who's going to be great this year, with San Diego State, it depends on what happens. I guess their presidents are going to meet today and I guess maybe try to figure out their future. But I'll tell you, I think their future should be without Kirk Schultz in charge and without George Kliavkoff. They need to just turn it over to San Diego State or somebody else.
Maybe we've been barking the wrong tree. Maybe this has been big brain thinking all along by Cal and Stanford, realizing they could get into the playoffs if they got rid of everybody else, then backfilled it. They might actually get into the playoffs. You know, I think we've been going the wrong direction.
There you
go.
Time, you
there we go. Solved. There we have it.
It's Oppenheimer at work right there at his old school.
Oh wow!
At his old school, yeah. So Badger and Bournemouth, yeah. It's going to be an interesting question. What happens? John points out, yeah, if you guys could hit the like button, that really helps the channel. It's a big help for Mark and the whole community. I know it sounds cheesy and everybody says it, but it really does help make a difference. So thank you very much. There's a ton of you guys watching. So you guys that are watching, we would love to hear from you guys as well. This is not just for us. This is for you guys. So let me put the link up here. If you want to tell us what you think of Washington, Oregon, off to join USC and UCLA in the Big 10. We would love to hear it. I'll put the link in the chat as well.
Also, let us know where you think Washington State, Oregon State, Cal, and Stanford, where are they going to end up? Are Cal and Stanford going to go independent? Are all 4 going to go to one particular conference? Are they going to split up? Who knows at this point, but are Cal and Stanford going to discontinue football? I think all questions are on the table. What do you guys think out there in the chat?
Well, remember, Cal still owes $500 million or $450 million on the bonds for their stadium.
And And Oregon State just redid their stadium. So I'm sure, I don't know if that was all privately financed or they pulled bonds on that as well. I don't know.
It's going to be interesting. All right, we've got Immaculate is joining us. Immaculate, welcome. What do you think about the big excitement today? Washington and Oregon off to the Big Ten.
It's quite a day. It's actually coming quite a bit faster than we even thought it was going to happen. I don't know if you've seen also as well, there's talk about bringing Washington State and Oregon State into the Big 12.
Yeah, well, I mean, things are going to move slower for the Big 12 because people have to weigh up their odds. But if you get a call from the Big 10, you just take it. That's why it goes fast.
Tim, I think you were dead on earlier, actually, when you said that they were trying to wait on the Arizona schools to move, but then when it wasn't happening quick enough, they just said, screw it, we got golf this weekend. Let's just go pull Washington and Oregon in.
It's true. It could be. And guys, by the way, I haven't seen it actually, the actual thing. I'm told Oregon has officially announced it.
Yeah.
I'm seeing a comment from their official release.
The Oregon Press came out and said that they're not, if this is true, this was reported by a reputable person, that they're not going to get a full share in the conference until 2030.
Wow.
What?
That makes sense.
Wow.
Well, that's the life of the TV deal.
Yeah, that's Tony's on it. Yeah, that's when the TV deal ends and when the renegotiation would happen.
Wow.
And that's the same thing, by the way. Actually, it might even be faster than Maryland and Rutgers had.
Yeah, I don't know the timing on that, but you could be right. Absolutely. I think there's 8 years for them.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know. Somebody in the chat will know. But yeah, it was the whole life of that last TV deal. So I think, in fact, it might even be that this is their first year getting it. I don't know exactly. Mikey G, friend of the show, points out it's official, boys.
God damn it! Mikey now I can't call them AAA Eugene anymore. Way to go!
Get it out.
Enjoy the conference and ruin my favorite joke.
Congrats, Mikey G.
Good job.
Washington State put out a release today, sort of expressing their sadness. I don't give them a lot of sympathy because their president has been driving this ship. So Immaculate, what do you think about the rest of the moves?
As far as Arizona State, and Utah,
exciting for them.
Yeah, that's been so much drama with between Arizona State and everything going on there, and yeah, I think a lot of these people who are on these boards, they don't realize now how many people are watching. So when they're holding these board of regents and board of trustee meetings, they don't realize like all the important people that are watching. You have media people that are now giving play-by-plays of board of trustee and board of regents meetings. So it wasn't a good look, but I think this was the eventuality that had to happen, no matter what they were thinking was going to happen. So I think it's good. As someone living here in Arizona, I'm glad Arizona State will stay together.
It is good. I thought it was a terrible idea for them not to be together, and I think that they would regret that. I mean, I say that here we're looking at the split of Washington and Oregon and Wazoo and Oregon State, and I think that's really hard and sad. But I also get the math behind it.
I actually think that if the Big 12 pulls them in, we may see some kind of a scheduling arrangement between the Big 10 and the Big 12, because it's not just that, it's Iowa State. You could start to look at a few of these, depending if maybe they pull in California as well, if the money's there to pull them as a partial member or something like that.
Well, and you can always do, a very easy type thing is what USC and Stanford do currently with Notre Dame, which is that the USC and Stanford play each other a week early so that then they both have their Notre Dame games at the end of the season.
Yeah, and this isn't the first time we've seen this. Like some of the scheduling arrangements way back going in the day were all about Texas and Oklahoma. And if they were ever going to be split up between two different conferences, they had to figure out, okay, how are these two conferences going to work together for that Dallas game?
Well, they were in two conferences for 60, 70 years or whatever.
And it worked then. And then, there was a time when everyone thought the Big 12 was going to be parceled out. And there was scenarios where Oklahoma and Texas would go in two different directions. And so that's when you started to see scheduling alliances coming out of nowhere because of these two schools. It was kind of funny.
Cool. Well, hey, we've got. So go ahead.
You got more people coming in. I was just
We do.
calling it because I was
Take your
kind of
time.
congratulate the Washington and Oregon folks. I know that they've been watching this on pins and needles, and it is starting to look like we're starting to get some news that maybe there's good news for Oregon State and Washington State as well. So congratulations around. I think if Stanford and California get them out of the conference, I think they might have a surprise for everybody. They got some friends up in the Northeast, shall we say?
That would be interesting. We'll see. They both will be great for that.
Yeah, if those schools decide they need to come up to the FBS because of a certain lawsuit going on, nothing like having Stanford and Cal just sitting in there in an A conference waiting for you to join in. So
hey, that would be something else. I would as a Quaker alum, I would also love that too. Wow, because I miss the Quakers.
I mean, you start to look at Duke's in that same library with them. Northwestern's having problems in the Big Ten. Maybe people wouldn't care if they left. What about Vanderbilt? If they left SEC, are they going to care? I mean, you could start looking around at like the Rices and a few others, and you could put together a decent conference of just kind of elite private universities. And if they clear the way for Stanford to do that, you've got it right there. The basis would be the Pac.
Yeah, and also, I mean, what did they used to call it? The Magnolia League, I think is what they wanted to call it back in the day.
There's been plans. You might, I don't know the name, but yeah, it's the lawsuit. I'm sure you're aware of it, Tony. It's called Show et al. Versus Brown University, and there's
it's an ugly one.
There's 4 law teams that are from 4 other Ivy League schools that are actually taking part in it because they're all worried that this is going to kill their scholarship culture up there. And they're in Division I, so they're supposed to be paying scholarships. It's a problem. So we'll just leave it at that.
They have their own sets of things, and if they're, by the way, we joke about how the Pac-12 never liked anyone to tell it what to do. Those 8 schools don't want anyone to tell them what to do.
And so if they get forced into do this, they're coming with a vengeance. Like
they are.
Think you can do, and I mean, Stanford doesn't like NIL now, but you go to those schools and you force them to play by your game, your rules. I think they'll suddenly, all of a sudden, like NIL, and you will find that they can raise a whole lot more money.
Yeah, you really don't want to take on Goldman Sachs and BlackRock.
You don't want to take on the IV8 when it comes to actually raising money. It won't go well.
I love it. Hey, thank you for calling in. It was great to have you.
No problem, guys. Good talk.
Anytime.
Have a good one. Go Hawks.
You too. Go Hawks. All right. Next up to bat, we've got Need More Cowbell. Need More Cowbell. Welcome to the show. And what do you think about the big news today?
Thanks for having me on. I'm really ticked today. I'm very much a college football traditionalist. First, I want to say congratulations to Oregon and Washington fans. Having that burden off your shoulder, that worry of what's going to happen in the future, has to be a relief to everyone involved. And certainly Washington and Oregon deserve to know what their future is, as do all the schools. But today, college football got objectively worse than it was before. And it's been trending that way for a while. We found out what the values are. And the only value really is money. They don't care about traditions. They don't care about the student experience. They really, we have 7 less plays per game than we used to. The games take longer than they used to because we need to put more advertising on than it used to. That's the values. And we're now in a situation where the only thing that matters is money. And the B1G is gathering all the money it can because it knows it's going to have to pay its players. And it wants to pay its players more than Georgia. That's what this is about. And so if you are a small school in the Big Ten, you're on notice. You're on notice because now people are getting a partial share. And if you think Ohio State is not going to want more money in the next round of the TV contract so it can beat Georgia, you're nuts. You're going to take a smaller share in the future. So enjoy it now, because it's not going to last. And then the next stage is, hey, why are we sharing money at all with some of these smaller schools? Just get rid of them. If the only thing that matters is money, that's where we're headed. And the Big Ten pretending that it had no part in the death of the Pac-10 is just laughable. They have fired shot after shot after shot into not only the Big Ten, but college football. Adding, Jim Delaney, adding the Big Ten network was just about money. Jim Delaney adding Rutgers and Maryland was just about money. It had no impact on the traditions of the Big Ten. It was just money. And that has led us down to this point. And yes, Larry Scott screwed up by not taking Texas and Oklahoma when he had the chance. Why he passed on that, I'd love to see him, his memoirs one day of how he thought that was.
Texas was. So there's two separate issues there. The first one is Texas. Just to answer that, because I know the answer to this. The first is Texas. Texas insisted that they wanted to have their own Longhorn network, and they brought that to the Pac-12, and Texas was the key to all that deal, right? That was always about Texas. Yep. Texas and the Pac-12 have been flirting together since the 1980s.
Yep.
And they almost did in the 1990s, but Ann Richards insisted that they bring Baylor along too. Texas had to keep bringing too many bring-alongs, too many plus ones, and they said no. So then in 2010, whatever it was, Texas said, okay, we're coming. And ESPN made them the offer to keep them of the Longhorn network. So Texas came to the Pac and said, we want to do this. Can we have our own networking too? And USC and UCLA said, absolutely not, because if they do, then we're going to have our own LA network. And the Pac said, well, that won't work with our whole plan here for our Pac network. And USC and UCLA said, then they don't get their own. And so that's how that died, was Texas said, we want to have our own network. And that was the opposite of what the Pac was trying to do in creating its own network at the time. So that's how that Texas deal fell. Now, a year later, Oklahoma and Oklahoma State came back to the Pac and said, hey, we want to come after all. And this is the Pac expansion that I think was the screw up. Was 2011 or something like that. After they already had Colorado and Utah coming, Oklahoma and Oklahoma State came and said, we want to join too. And Pac said, no. I've personally always thought that was a mistake.
Okay. Fair enough. I agree with you. I agree. That was a terrible mistake. And probably a fatal mistake that led us down the path to where we are right now.
Well, it's part of the whole Larry Smith saga.
Yeah.
Larry Scott, sorry. Larry Smith is anotother saga. We won't go there.
Sure. But sort of the hope that the Pac-10 can hold together in an era where we're in a financial arms race to pay players with a contract that is available, the money that's available to what's left of the Pac. What's the point? The best players are now going to head to the Big Ten. The best players are now going to head to the SEC. And you're not going to be competitive, no matter what you did. Once they knew the numbers, they knew they weren't going to be competitive in the future. So you can die quick, or you can die slow. Either way, you're going to die. So
I agree 100%. That's what's going to happen. In 2025, you look at recruiting. The top 300 players, whether you look at On3 or 24/7, 240 of them, it's the 80-20 rule.
Yeah.
20% of all the people do 80% of the work. And so those two conferences, whether they're going to be right now they're at 18 and 16, I believe.
Yep.
What is that, 34? Call it 36 teams. They're going to get 240 of those top 300. The last 60 of the top 300 are going to be split by the rest of college football. And that's what, and that division, like you talked about, is going to get further and further. And the next time we go around with these TV contracts, exactly what you had said, they're going to weed out the Vanderbilts, the Northwesterns, the Purdues, and the TV networks are going to kick them out. This is the first time you're going to see that. They're going to kick them out because
who wants to see Stanford versus Rutgers?
That's what's going to happen
at 11 o'clock Pacific,
and you're
or 11 o'clock Eastern time. Nobody.
And you're going to get 30, 36 teams that quote unquote can compete for a national championship, that have the investment dollars, that have that vision. and you're going to have basically the NFL model by probably 2030.
That's exactly it.
Yep.
And college football will be worse for it.
Well, the Pareto principle, that 80-20, the whole idea of that is going to crush as we know it. I've been saying this for a long time. The money doesn't just come from the Big Ten and the SEC fans. It comes from college football fans. The majority, I bet you even the majority, the number of fans is dwarfed. And we always want to think that Ohio State and Georgia and Alabama are running this show. But really, what funds this entire show are the fans in Ames, Iowa, are in Lubbock, are in Corvallis, are in Blacksburg. They're all over the place, and they watch their team, but they also watch the big games.
Exactly,
and all that money's go right out the window when they all turn to different sports.
Sure, and you see this in other places in the world where if you're in a small Spanish city, you root for your team, but you also root for Barcelona or Real Madrid. Because your team's not going anywhere.
Real quick, sorry to interrupt.
Sure.
I just want to let you guys know, just a moment ago, the Big Ten headquarters has announced University of Oregon and University of Washington to join Big Ten Conference in 2024. They will also join the Big Ten Academic Alliance. So,
yep.
Anyway, sorry to interrupt, but this is breaking news, and thought we'd bring it to you.
Problem.
And I've seen a couple of people in the chat bring this up. You guys are throwing out payouts and stuff like that. I don't know if there are any. I'm not going to repeat it because you throw it in the chat. If you've got a link, I'd really appreciate it. Go ahead and drop that link. I can copy and paste it. Go ahead and show me that link because I would like to hear. I'm hearing everything from 30 to 40, then adding 1 million a year in increments. Let's get something like written before we start throwing stuff out there because no one knows what Oregon's getting paid or Washington's getting paid. Let's be fair to them before we start getting out these ideas.
Honestly, guys, when I heard that Oregon and Washington were going to be accepted to the Big Ten today, I'm like, wow, where did this money come from? And so I was expecting to see the next press release that Northwestern self-imposed temporarily banning football for the next 3 years and donating their Big Ten money to Oregon and Washington to bring them in the conference. I'm sorry, is that too soon? Is that too soon?
I think it's fair.
I don't think they'll be playing baseball either, so they could have pulled that money and, make it to good use.
This is really apropos that we actually have an Irish fan bringing this up. Love this guy. It's just about money. Yeah. And newsflash, the sky is blue. Greed and fears was driving all this. College football is a business. Coming from Notre Dame. We could talk about the money aspect and wrecking things. It all started with the NBC deal that started all big. That's what you guys allowed big money to seep into college football, which really we're going to blame you for everything from now on, Notre Dame, because it was that contract. But all seriousness, I don't think anyone's bringing earth-shattering news, but I do think people start to open their eyes up. Tony, you did a really great job, and a lot of people have brought some really good facts about how college football was always run. How this thing has been since the very beginning. The ties that go beyond how many guys you have in your bleachers. These things have been real for well over a century, and the rules are changing. So the fact anyone calling that they knew exactly how this went down, I call bullshit. Anyone out there saying they got all this now to say, well, I think the Pac-12 is going to dissolve. Well, wow, you really went out on a limb there, right? There was always a chance of this happening. And the only reason why this is not happening to the ACC is because of their grant of rights. And the only reason why this isn't happening to the Big 12 is because nobody wants your teams. I'm sorry.
Well,
Get mad at me, yell at me, whatever you want. But the fact is, the Big 12 is safe as hell because you guys are the island of misfit toys. You are where everyone goes when nobody wants you. So get mad at me, yell at me all you want.
Well, and the other thing, Tim, which we've talked about on this channel literally for 13 months now, is that it was always in the hands of the Big Ten presidents. And as long as the Big Ten presidents didn't want to expand, and they didn't, that the Pac-12 was fine because the Pac-12 was in good shape, was going to survive. And again, we said this, we looked at the map that we showed on July 1st, 2022, that it made sense. I always thought it made sense for the Big Ten to add. I still think it makes sense for them to take Cal and Stanford. They haven't yet. But, we've said that whole time that it's always been up to the Big Ten presidents. And the Big Ten presidents last night acted. And here come the ducks and the dogs, which is kind of exciting.
Tim, I love your honesty, your language. It's totally true. Because what do you think those network executives are saying in their meetings after they? What do you think they call the Big 12? They're a bunch of misfit toys. Those guys, they're cutthroat. It's reality. It's numbers. It's eyeballs. It's ads. It's business, and that's how they're talking. So anybody who's offended in the chat, what Tim's saying, grow some skin.
Oh, and this is probably Ron Lowry. This guy smells of Big 12. A moving target. Hey, Ron, how old are you? The world changes, Ron. Yeah. Things aren't the same they were in 1975.
Hold on. Immaculate has an answer. Immaculate has an answer for us, by the way. He says Adam Rittenberg. Oh,
sorry,
it vanished. I don't know why it vanished. Immaculate's wherever it went. Adam Rittenberg is saying $30 million per year to start, increases $1 million a year for the length of the contract. Okay, so that's what. Oh, that's
for who?
That's
Oregon and Washington.
That's Immaculate says that's what Adam Rittenberg says. I haven't seen it because I'm
okay.
Here.
So it caps out at $36 million, and if we're getting this all right, in 2030 it'll cap out at $36 million. Is what we're saying for Oregon and Washington.
If that's correct, I don't know.
Right.
So presumably, but I mean, regardless, it's not. So it's not. If that's accurate, it's not escalating to the degree that a lot of people thought earlier.
So if I'm doing the math correctly, I think at the end of the Big Ten contract, USC and UCLA are expected to make upwards of 90 to 100 million. Is that fair?
Also, I don't know if the other thing we don't know is that media money or is that all distribution? There's a lot of questions left to be answered.
So I think USC and UCLA are projected to start off this contract at 65 to 70 million. Is that number sound familiar? So basically
more than that if you include the all in.
Okay, so you're looking at to start off a $40 million gap if what Adam Rittenberg is reporting for Oregon and Washington to get with their initial shares. You're looking at a $40 million gap per year. So if you had to do this all over again, Oregon and Washington, how are you feeling about the long-term play? You didn't want to do equal revenue sharing because Larry Scott did his song and dance and you bought into it. And now you're starting a new race $40 million behind. I don't know how that sits well. And by the way, how much can Uncle Phil support your travel expenses? They might have to look at the Saudi with the LIV, the PFI fund. They might have to get.
Rick, I don't know if you saw this today. Rick's just getting back from Europe. Florida State has hired JP Morgan Chase to find it financing to be able to get out of the ACC.
Guess who they're calling?
They're calling the Saudis. Sergeant Pickles had. So we expected this, but word is UW and WSU will keep the Apple Cup. I would think so. It's especially your governor is I think he's a Husky with a Cougar wife, and so they have like all their split house and all that kind of stuff.
And whoever you are, hold on, sorry, Tony.
Oh, sorry, I thought
whoever you are. I'm not sure. Do we not consider winning the Rose Bowl in 2017, the 2017 Rose Bowl? We don't consider that a big game. I think we do. So get your facts right, bud.
All right. Hey, need more cowbell? We've got Lawrence waiting. Anything else?
No. Thanks for having me on and letting me vent.
Hey, come vent anytime. We're always glad to have you.
There's another comment, Tony, in here talking about that. Yeah, they're a conference of misfit toys, but not in basketball. Again, the world changes, man. Your conference is getting $30 million a year. Schools, you ever heard of UCLA? They're getting $80 million, $70 million a year to work on their program. Oregon, I hate to say it, under Dana, they've had some really good teams as well. USC getting a lot of extra money. So before we start getting all excited, yeah, I'm sure you do have a great Houston's. You've got some really good programs in basketball, but this is really all about football, man. So good job on the basketball aspect, but don't expect that to last forever. That's all I'm going to say. Enjoy your $30 million, bud.
All right. Hey, we got a Spartan on board. Lawrence, welcome to the show. Oh, right here. Lawrence?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Background, Lauren. Can you go somewhere a little quieter?
Yeah, I'm moving there now. I'm sorry. Trying to do two things at one time. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're
Yes.
fine.
Welcome to
Okay,
the
I'm
show.
sorry about that. Thank you so much, TJ Altimore. Hey, so and others. Hey, listen. So I'm calling because, of course, of the news today. You know what? For me, it's not a surprise at all. All this stuff that's transpired with the expansion of Big 12 and Big 10, certain people have been saying this is going to happen for the last year. So today is just the culmination of that. Now, Tony, I follow you on Twitter, and you said that people who lied to you need to be held accountable. You know, that includes you too. You need a mirror to your face today because you were telling people that Utah was no way going to go to the Big 12 or nothing like that.
They didn't want to.
You know, the truck stop conference, people were lying.
Actually, I've never said that, but we don't really need personal attacks. Yeah. I mean, we said from the get-go on this channel that it was up to the Big Ten presidents. And as long as the Big Ten presidents didn't want to move, nobody was going to move. And we even saw this morning that they still didn't want to move. So, I mean, it's always been up to the Big Ten presidents. And we talked about that on this channel since July. I think it was July 1st, 2022, when we put up that map and we said it's up to the Big Ten. And the Big Ten presidents didn't want to move, and now they do. So, I mean, that's one of the things is that it's always up to the Big Ten and the SEC. If the SEC or the Big Ten want to move, then they'll move.
Tony, I find it funny when people say you lied. All I remember you doing is putting numbers out there, right? And showing what was in basically what everyone was saying.
Well, and what the president said. I mean, the president said, we don't want to go.
Yeah, it's just weird. A lot of it reeks of a lot of the Big 12. I think that guy's a state fan, I think. But it just reeks of just the misfit toys getting angry. Look, at the end of the day, you guys, whatever shook out here, the Big Ten's gonna be fine. You get in the Big Ten, awesome job. You're in the SEC, you can get in the SEC, awesome job. But I can't remember who said it. I don't want to put words in your mouth, Rick. But do you want to die like some of these teams are happening right now? Because again, it's coming for you. The Pac-12 was the first one because they were vulnerable, because there were teams like Washington, like USC, like Oregon, like UCLA. You know, you yank the top teams out of any conference. Take the top 4 teams out of, let's say, before USC went over. What if we go to the Big Ten, right? And we yank Michigan, Penn State, Ohio State, and I'll just throw a 4th. Let's just say Iowa or like Wisconsin. You grab those 4 teams and yank them out of the Big Ten. What does the Big Ten become? You go to the SEC and you go in there, you yank out Alabama, Georgia, LSU, and Tennessee. What exactly is the SEC at that point? So anyone hand-wringing, we can do that for any conference. The fact is the Big 12, you guys, get mad, say, I'm mad, I'm crying. Listen, I've heard people say I'm crying. Dude, I'm crying. I'm tears of joy. My team is going to the Big Ten. Make all your stupid comments you want, right? This is a great day for Washington and Oregon. It sucks for Pac-12, but get ready, the rest of you. Either A, you're going to be torn apart, or B, like the Big 12, you're going to be a bunch of teams that nobody wanted. So good luck, man. Appreciate your time.
Hey, there's a gentleman in the chat, Kevin Badger. Thank you for your comment. He says these guys are bitter. Let me address that, Kevin. Number one, I'm speaking for myself. I'm obviously a USC alum, a USC longtime fan. But I grew up with the Pac-8, the Pac-10, the Pac-12. And this is a very sad day for what happened, because we know about what happened in this conference. You heard of what I said today about Larry Scott, about Michael Crow, the inept Pac-12 leadership. This didn't have to happen. Again, I point out to the president of Florida State, who echoed these same sentiments on Wednesday night about Florida State. They're subjected to not being able to compete because of the revenue sharing model that was dictated to them by ESPN through 2036. This was USC's case back in 2009. Now, if we do sound bitter, and I'm an old guy, call me a cranky old man, I don't care. But this didn't have to happen. And it did, because you had a guy who thought he was smarter than everybody in the room. That's Larry Scott. Okay. And he preached academia and his vision to the Pac-12 presidents who bought this Pac-12 network, right? But when he tried to sell it to the business world, to the carriers, the TV networks, they didn't buy it. They never distributed it after 7 years. And then you get Michael Crow, who reinvented the university model at ASU. Good for you, Michael Crow. You've been around since 2002. And he enabled Larry Scott and renewed his contract. 6 years of still not getting distribution. And I read you that quote earlier, if you were online, about 2018 during Pac-12 media days. Larry looked in his crystal ball and he predicted what was going to happen in 2024. And here we are a year before that. So yeah, that's why we're bitter, because this has changed college football forever. Somebody also said in the chat that they're not going to kick teams out. You don't know that, because 3 years ago, you would have never believed that Texas and Oklahoma would be in the SEC and USC, UCLA, Oregon, and Washington would be in the Big Ten. But if you think college football is going to remain like you remembered it, what it used to be, sorry, it's not. And that's why I'm bitter, is because this has changed college football forever. And Larry Scott and Michael Crow, shame on you guys.
Well, and let's take a look. We got a couple of great super chats here. Dabo with 805 winning percentage. Great comments. Even with the crap media deal, Clemson's still top 20 in national athletic revenue because we make $40 million a year extra from fees that are paid to buy football tickets. Yeah, I mean, one of the things too is when you look at the budgets of these schools, and people are like, oh, we get 5 million, 10 million more. And the ACC is going to a new model that's going to be sort of an eat what you kill revenue sharing. You can close the gaps with big revenue teams. I mean, look what Oregon's been doing. Look what USC's been doing. So yeah, I agree with you, Dow 805 winning percentage. You're right. It's Clemson remains in a very, very good position. We just hit a couple more super chats. Thank you guys for all your contributions to help Mark in the channel. He really appreciates it. Mr. Downtown says, keep an eye out for state politics to get involved. New York, New Jersey are some of the few states that allow their college athletes to seek money without NCAA interference. Yes, state politics are going to be really interesting, and it'll be really interesting to see if they get involved with some of these moves. Sick Genius says ND has all the money leverage for joining a conference. Yeah, and remember too, the Big Ten has an escalator clause with Notre Dame that will rapidly increase the value of the Big Ten conference. So if Notre Dame does decide to do something, that would be big. Sorry, next one. USC can enjoy its island with a 1/4 full stadium. USC actually sells averages 64,000 last year.
The fact is that the USC has almost every year led the Pac-12 in attendance, just going back throughout history. So it's stupid. Last couple of years of the Helton era, USC fans were just tired of ineptitude and Heritage Hall. They fired the entire athletic department. They brought in some new people that really knew what they're doing. Brought in a decent coach. I'll remind anybody who watched even during the Lane Kiffin years and even in some of the Sark years that we were selling out the stadium. So I really don't know what you're talking about. But yeah, in California, unlike other parts of the world, if you put a crap product on the field, and I'm not talking about the players, I'm talking about the people how they're running the show. If you do that, people have better things to do than to show up and support what they feel is enabling a really bad athletic department. A lot of fans, USC fans, got tired of enabling them to be mediocre. They said, we've had enough. And people stopped who had been like season ticket holders for like 30, 40 years, just stopped going. So you clearly don't know what you're talking about. Hey, tell you what, let me know how this Coliseum looks this year and going forward.
I was going to say, Anthony Zappin, thank you, man. Come check out the USC postgame live with Tony Altimore and Tim Prangley Jr. and myself after every USC football. Anthony, we want you there every week so you can go ahead and catalog and take a look at what our attendance is. Because, yes, we're going to try to break that 25% threshold, Anthony. Thank you very much, buddy. After every USC game, you make sure you tune in. We appreciate people like you.
We like it. And thank you for your contribution. Thanks for helping the channel.
Tony, let me say really quick.
Okay, go ahead.
When I crack on the Big 12 and the misfit toy stuff, honestly, that is just really, I am, that is tongue in cheek to a degree. Because again, I know plenty of Big 12 fans that are amazing fans. I'm talking to the hang-wringing morons out there that have been predicting this for a year now. The fact that this was going to go down exactly the way it did, and you were all wrong. No one, anyone tell me that anyone called exactly how this thing went down? I would love to hear it. Me, from what I predicted, I didn't really predict much of anything. You know, but here's what I am going to tell you. None of you guys out there in Big 12 land on the island of misfit toys, you guys didn't get it right. You can say that we're crying. Remember this. All season, when your team's in the Big 12 and USC's in the Big 10, you really think that we're crying about that, man? I highly doubt that we'll be sad about how things shook out in the end.
All right, let's move on. We got a couple more. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Texas Buckeye. Yeah, we've talked about this for months, that if the Big 10 presidents wanted to make a move, that's what we'd see. We've looked at maps of it, data of it, and they did. So thank you for your super chat. Elk 70 says, us Ohio State fans don't want Cal anywhere near the big. Keep Michael Drake far away. He's the main reason Kevin Ward is Big Ten commissioner. Yeah, Michael Drake is the president of the University of California system. So you do already have him, though, because he does technically run UCLA. The Real Hayden, a awesome Iowa fan, good friend of the show, says, I remember some of the old days. I think they should keep FSU and Miami out of the ACC and into the big. Send a shot across the bow of the SEC, just my opinion. Hey, what do you guys think, real quick? And I don't want to, and actually, I'm going to hit another Florida State one, and we'd love your guys' talk on Florida State. Jim says about Florida State here. FSU leaked the JP Morgan announcement for one reason. They have the money to go out and kill the ACC. Too bad for those guys. We out. Guys, what do you think of, and I don't want to spend too long on it, but what do you think of this whole situation here with Florida State?
Well, there's an obvious issue, and I've addressed that a few times, and they're getting out ahead of it, and they realize that it's not sustainable. So they're looking at anything, Florida State looking at anything such as JP Morgan to create havoc and to break up this grant of rights. How long it's not a matter of if, it's they need to do it. And so they'll go by any means necessary. And, you got ESPN holding that grant of rights. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens, because if that does happen, then you're going to have teams that, trust me, most of them, the good ones, are going to go to the SEC and the Big 12. The Big 10. The other ones, who knows where they're going to go.
And this is just flexing. For Florida State, they said it. You can't stay at a conference where you're making $30 million a year when everyone else is making 70, 80, 90 million a year. It's not viable. Correct me if I'm wrong, Rick, but that's pretty much what they said. They said, we can't stay in this situation. We're falling behind all the competition. So they're going to find a way to get out of it. The only thing I've heard some people kick around is the fact that maybe ESPN throws a little more money into it, makes it an uneven distribution to give them the money to make them happy. Because like you said, ESPN does have the ACC. I don't know how the machinations work, but you cannot stay in a conference paying you $30 million a year when everyone else is making 70, 80 million a year. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And a brand like Florida State is trapped in that grant of rights. And if they can get out, or if anybody can get out, I think they should try.
I don't think ESPN would give them more money, because the SEC was hoping that ESPN would give them more money to play a ninth game. And when the SEC found out that ESPN wouldn't throw any more money at them, they said, oh, okay, well, we'll stay at 8. So if ESPN is not going to give the SEC more money, and they've been laying off all these people and the cords have been cut, they don't feel sorry for the ACC. Go ahead, challenge our grant of rights.
Well, and then Florida State and other programs are going to work their way out of it. Maybe have to pay the long run, right? But and then they'll get out, and whatever difference, if you're making a $40-50 million difference, who cares about $100 million or $150 million? What's your break-even point? 2-3 years? I mean, I don't know exactly if the math's that clean, but if you can get out instead of waiting until 2036 or whatever, it makes sense. And like I said, the Pac-12 went down. The difference between the Pac-12 and the ACC is the fact that schools like Florida State can't leave, or feel like they can't leave because of the money. And then you have the other conferences like the Big 12, where I don't hate to beat a dead horse. Nobody wants those teams. And so it's stable and they will continue to play. But do you want to die like the Pac-12 or do you want to go out in the death of a million paper cuts like the Big 12 is going to have? And people keep talking about basketball. You know, you guys are saying how great your basketball conference is. I remember not too long ago, people talking about the ACC, you know, as a great, and you know what? Hey, the Big East has pretty good basketball as well, but I mean, you don't hear about it kind of talked about. So you can build a great basketball conference, but for how long and when? You don't think other programs are going to catch up? I mean, I don't get what the idea is about building a great basketball conference because that's not permanent either, man. So good luck with that.
Guys, I love your thoughts on this. A great Genetics 56 just sent us a direct message asking for us to bring this up. I think this is actually a really good point, and it echoes something that he talked about with Mark Rogers on this channel the other night. I thought it was a really, really good point then, just reminded me to bring it up. He says, Oregon and Washington going to the Big 10 to compete against the biggest brands instead of being in the Big 12 will help save interest among college football fans in the entire Northwest region of the country and good for the health of the sport. This is very important. He says this is a great day for the future of the sport from a health and interest perspective because as we look at that map, it keeps major conference football in that entire north part of the sport. Because if you take a look at that, you think about the SEC and the Big 10, without this move today, you'd be going from LA to Austin and then up. And so everything, you know, northwest of LA, Austin, Omaha, or Lincoln would have no major teams in it. Guys, is this sort of good for the health of the sport in that way, do you think?
I hate going back to this, but that small teams out there in a mediocre conference thinking that this is a great day and that you've won any victories, it's a bit difficult because you're starting to see how this game, everything is being concentrated, and we knew this was happening for a long time, but now it's just being sped up. And so every time you have something get chewed up and you see all the sport getting centralized into locations is when you're going to see the whole idea of college football start to disintegrate. I'm just going to leave it at that.
Honestly, I don't know how they're going to do it. You have 18 teams today. Who knows what they're going to expand to for 2024, but they had schedules for 2024 and 2025, you know, the home opponents and away opponents, that's all scrapped. Are they going to do 3 pods of 6, you know, with the Washington, Oregon, USC, UCLA, and let's just say Nebraska and Minnesota, and then have 6 in the Central and 6 in the East? I don't know how they're going to do it. They'll figure it out. But everything has changed as of today. And isn't it kind of ironic that I think, Tony, you put up the official news release from the Big Ten, probably at about 3:30 Pacific time, or 3:45 Pacific time, 6:45 East Coast time on a Friday night. They got it done. They hammered everything out, and the end of the week is going to be a monumental one that everybody's going to remember with college football.
The thing is, I think it's going to be a pod, Tony. So if you want to talk about the actual house.
Go ahead, and then we'll kill off the super chats. Go ahead,
Tony.
sorry.
So I think it's going to be a pod system like they had. And the problem is, though, is we were, you know, hearing as C fans, we were hearing that we'd be playing, you know, every team every other year. And obviously, clearly that's gone. Now it's going to go to a situation where we're going to these big, gigantic conferences again, where you're not going to play certain teams for 2, 3, 4 years, I'm afraid. And it's going to suck. And splitting into an East and a West, that even means even more teams will be missed every year. So what I'm concerned about is how are they going to do this? And they're talking about adding to a 20th team. That just means that your conference doesn't mean much. You don't, you know, great were the days when you had conferences where you played everybody in your conference. That's going to be gone now. I mean, how often do you see Alabama play Georgia and you know, during the regular season? You know, 2 teams you would love to see play every single year, but they don't play each other. How often will USC be able to play Ohio State, a matchup I was looking forward to? How often will USC play Michigan, a matchup I was really looking forward to? That's what's lost in all of this. And again, this is what tells you that college football fans aren't driving any of this. This is all the networks cutting up pieces of the pie to make money. And again, you know, those of you guys that were protected in conferences, you know, are now gone. And I think, Rick, you made the point about this is, you know, what's this next step of realignment? When you start losing great programs like the Illini or the Boilermakers, and they start getting pushed out because, there's other teams that would make more money and make more sense. We're starting to see things that in the old days, the collegiate ways, and Tony, you would back this up 100%. You didn't drop founding members and stuff, but everything's off the table now. It seems like it seems like how things were done in the past has gone away. So if you are college football fans at mid to smaller programs, this is a scary wake-up call. And I mean, again, I make jokes, but I know there are great fans in the Big 12. I know there are great fans in the ACC and the Pac-12 that are really going to be screwed in all of this. And those of you guys out there excited, like this was a great day, I really can't emphasize that more. None of this is good for the football. None of this is good for football. It's great for Fox and ESPN, but not good for football.
Tim, I think you're right. I think Lishcore has a good comment on here. We just want to highlight. He says he's excited with the energy and changes. New rivalries and traditions will be formed. I do think that is one nice thing I think that we'll see. Don't you think? We'll see some new rivalries too.
Well, yeah, I guess there'll be some slow, long. But do we want new rivalries? I was happy with our rivalries in the Pac-12. Yeah, I mean, change is look, it's life, right? Life changes, but those changes aren't always for the best. But they happen. You accept them and you move on.
Thank you to for that contribution. We appreciate it. Sorry, LBC, go ahead.
I was going to say selfishly, USC has played the Big Ten a number of different times throughout the history, and they played every Big Ten team with the exception of Maryland and Rutgers. And so selfishly, I'm a little disappointed because Oregon and Washington have been added because you can do the math. We're going to have to play those teams every year, which takes away the opportunity, as Tim mentioned too, of playing Big Ten teams, 2 of them, every year. So that cycle, you're not going to get to play as many as you possibly would in a 4-year cycle. So that's what's disappointing is, and I'm sure they might add some more. So I was excited to get in and have the opportunity to play a lot of different Big Ten schools. And we saw that schedule come out for 2024 and 25. That was awesome. Now we don't know what's going to happen. And it's the TV networks that are going to dictate what the schedule is going to be like. So it's a free-for-all.
McMuffin, who's awesome, called in the other day. Was fun to chat with you. Says Big 12 definitely not in a power position. All it takes is ACC breakup. Talking about stuff with the Big East and Big 12 could lose basketball power. Yeah, that's true. And basketball could be another element of this because the way the NCAA basketball tournament is structured, if that were to be changed, it would be interesting. Erica, we love Erica. Go Hawks. Points out the keyboard warriors are out in force. Yeah, Erica, the keyboard warriors have been ferocious today.
They're a bit salty and sad, and their tears are delicious, is all I'm going to tell you.
Yeah, I don't deal with them. I'll tell you guys actually something. We did a project when I was in grad school. We actually broke down like the optimal way to deal with nasty people on social media. And it's actually, if you do the analysis, the optimal way is just to block them. So that's what I do. So I just ignore the keyboard warriors. I don't even see their comments. Texas Buckeye. Thank you, Texas Buckeye, for that contribution, $10. Mark and the whole channel really appreciate it. He says, USC, UCLA, OU, and Washington, welcome to the Big Ten. Hey, we're glad to be here on behalf of the Trojan family, that's for sure. Wes, Penn State fan here. Welcome all to the Big Ten. Won't take you too long to realize that only 2 teams matter, Michigan and the Ohio State University. It is what it is. Guys, is there a third one on the way? Maybe a 4th and 5th?
Yeah, I'm just a bit confused. What has Penn State done again?
That's the Dan Lanning line. The Dan Lanning line today that he used.
We could talk the smack all we want, but I mean, what is last time we played Penn State? Rick, can you let me know how the last 2 times USC played Penn State work out?
Hey,
actually, the last time was a heck of a game.
Read Wes's super chat. He's actually telling the truth. He's a Penn State fan, and he's saying, "Hey, you'll soon realize that only 2 teams, Michigan and Ohio State, matter." So he's giving it up. Penn State's that 3rd team. Penn State's that 3rd team, and I think USC is going to have something to say about it. I know Washington will, Oregon will. It's going to be a heck of a conference. And look out for Wisconsin, Iowa, Nebraska. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I wouldn't concede anything, Wes. Sorry, I read it wrong. My bad. I wouldn't concede anything to Michigan and Ohio State. I wouldn't, I just wouldn't. And maybe we will be the people walking in there. And I have all the respect in the world for what the Big Ten is. But, if you're going to add 4 teams to your conference, it's not going to be the same, just like the rest of college football. So what the Big Ten was like is forever going to change. Whether it's USC, UCLA, Oregon, or Washington, I would assume one of these schools break through and is going to upset the top end of the Big Ten.
Matthew Miller says the haves and have-nots are getting more clear. Soon the have-nots will be phased out. Even as a Texas kid, this is sad and will get worse. CFB's becoming the NFL. Yeah,
Exactly.
I mean, we talked.
Yep.
And speaking of that, by the way, let's just bring in our friend of the show who's waiting in the room, Will ND. Will, welcome.
Hey guys.
So, Will,
Good to have you. We're gonna get through a couple super chats, and we love your take on the day. Alex, and by the way, thank you guys again for helping support Mark and the channel. Alex says by the next Big Ten media deal, deadweight schools will be cut from the Big Ten. That's an interesting thing. Now, technically, under the Big Ten rules, I believe they can't do that. But so we'll see what happens.
That's good.
There certainly could be a talk about revenue distribution or something. I don't know what, the way they handled this, by the way, in the 50s is they left the conference and created a new one when they created the Pac-12. That's how they cut the dead weight.
Yeah. And again, I don't want to see it. I'm not, but it just seems like the way this sport is going and ruining, decades and decades, a century of how these conferences have been run. I don't put anything past it. What we knew about college football, you guys, from paying the players now to having to sit out if you transfer, all of it is just slowly turning into that to clock rules. The networks are trying to turn this into an NFL model that nobody's going to like. I just don't think even the fans, if you are a team like Ohio State or Alabama, right, and you guys are always on top and you're excited, part of your history is tied with that past history. And when things change to a level where we don't recognize the sport anymore, all your great success is going to be tarnished. It's going to be gone. What we know from college football, they're still going to play the field's not going to change. The number of players aren't going to change, but everything else, as far as tradition, as far as what made this sport special, from college football to the NFL, there's a reason why I watch the NFL, but I don't follow. You know what I mean? How many of you guys out there, you watch NFL? I watch NFL football all the time. But since '94, when the Rams screwed off and decided they wanted to leave, that was it. I didn't follow football. I'll watch any football. I watch Canadian football, but I don't watch the NFL like I used to. How many people, if you are in a smaller school and you get screwed out of this realignment, great, insanely great fans like Corvallis, I heard they might be going to the Big 12. How many of you guys are going to be just disenfranchised and become baseball fans, if you're not fully already, or switch to a different sport? That's the problem you're having. That's why these networks don't care. They don't care about what fans want. They just see bottom dollars, and that's the shame of the whole thing.
And we got a question from David Began. And David, thank you. David's actually put in a couple of super chats, a $10 one, a $20 one, and a $5 one. David, thank you so much for helping support Mark in the community. David wants to know, add Stanford and Notre Dame. You have 4 regional pods of 5 teams. Guys, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Well, and we have just the Notre Dame fan on here to give us the answer to that. Will, what do you think of David's idea?
Well, I don't know. I mean, Irish fans are still pretty anti-Big Ten, but if Florida State and Clemson move, the Irish might make the move to the Big Ten, but we'll see.
Will,
I've been more open to it lately.
Note to Will, call Stanford. Have your Father Jenkins, is it? Call Stanford. I think they before Mark Tessler Levine backs out or resigns at the end of this month. But make that happen now. Why would you want to go ahead and react to Florida State and Clemson? You guys are the leaders. Make it happen now. Come on, there you go. 18 plus 2 is 20.
Well, Rick, I'm looking at Washington or Oregon joining, and I mean, I think that's almost tipping the hand. I mean, there's been constant communication between the two, between the Big Ten and Notre Dame. And the fact that they're bringing Washington and Oregon on, I mean, we could take it a bunch of different ways. Maybe they're trying to put the pressure on, like you're saying, and with Florida State and Clemson. But I don't know how much that posturing is actually accurate. They're going to join the Big Ten. But it is clear that Notre Dame needs to probably do something. And I don't know. Clearly, there's a reason why they're waiting, clearly. But I'd love to hear what that is.
So this is what I would most likely to happen. I don't think it's going to happen. But I would love for Notre Dame right now, if everything just stays the way it is, to join the ACC and save the ACC. Like that would be what I would most like want to happen.
Yeah, did you hear we talked about what's going to be going on down the road? I don't want to predict. That'd be great. Hey, listen, if Notre Dame could join the ACC and then Clemson and Notre Dame and Florida State and Miami, they could build this great league. Maybe absorb some of the misfit toys at the whatever. Then that would be great. But I don't see that working the way I don't see it shaping up that way. Do you think that that's a feasible model, that would be viable?
I mean, I was listening to an Irish podcast while I was at work today, and that was what he wants to happen because he really hates the Big Ten. So, yeah,
okay, there's a reason why. I mean, the Big Ten was really horrible and very bigoted towards the Catholics at Notre Dame for decades and decades. And there's a lot of Chrysler started that stuff, Chrysler or whatever his name is, started all that stuff. And I get and Yost. I get all the stuff that you guys have against the Big Ten, but remember that was a long time ago. And I mean,
Jim Delaney was talking bad about Notre Dame, like the last commissioner. Jim Delaney was like trashing Notre Dame every chance he got. So,
all right. Well, I mean, when I look at Tony's map right here, and I'm looking, I see USC, and I see Michigan, and I see Michigan State, and I see Indiana. I'm looking at like a lot of your guys' traditional. And Stanford, if Stanford were to, it just seems like all of your rivals. Well, what rivalries do you have in the ACC? That Miami thing that everyone tried to invent.
Miami and Florida State and Clemson are all kind of new rivals. But yeah, I don't know. Like, man, I just wish that USC could have been the big boy, stood up, and stayed in the Pac-12 and lead it. Like, I know that the last Larry Scott was a dummy and did all of his stuff, but I felt like him, Kleoptov, UCLA, Cal, they could have stood up and led the pack, but fortunately, that's not what happened.
And we got a comment here from Davos Swinney. Winning percentage, good friend of the show, as a question. Sorry, guys, we're trying to get through the rest of the super chats. He says, if the Big 12, sorry, I just froze for a sec. He says, if the Big 12 ultimately adds Louisville, Pitt, Virginia Tech, and Duke, does that do anything for long-term viability? I honestly don't see that happening. I'm sure it would. Those are some great programs. I don't see it happening. What do you guys think?
The issue is the money. I mean, there is some. Just because you're not a top program now doesn't mean you can never become a top program. Why I'm saying the misfit toy thing is it almost seems like the networks are taking the teams that they think will make them the most money. And so you have what's left in the Big 12. Those are some great programs, but are any of those programs the top in their own current conference? What's happening is the SEC took the top 2 teams from the Big 12, and then the Big 10 took the top 4 teams from the Pac-12. And so that it brings a lot of they're bringing to an already strong arguably the 2 strongest conferences just got the best teams from other conferences. It's only going to strengthen them. And the Big 12 they brought in a bunch. They really watered themselves down with a bunch of G5 schools, bringing in some of the leftover teams from the other conferences, kind of like what they're doing with the Pac-12 now as well. I mean, the Big 12 is getting some great programs from the Pac-12. Oregon State, if they get Oregon State, Arizona, I guess for basketball. Hey, by the way, enjoy the Arizona Wildcat basketball fans. Thank you. You guys, I really hope you enjoy that group because they're a wonderful bunch of people. Really enjoy that, guys.
It's get it well. They'll fit in well with you guys. The Arizona Texas Tech basketball games. Wear body armor.
Oh my god! Oh, no, they're a bunch of putzes, Tony. It's not like this. It's not like they just got a bunch of big mouths. Trust me, it was embarrassing when they used to come to the Coliseum or to the sports arena way back in the day, and most recently in Galen. It's kind of a joke. They're with their little nerdy. Anyway, so yeah, good luck enjoying those guys. They all come in. They come all dressed in a uniform for you. You can tell exactly who they are. You know, they all have the same little nerd uniform on. So enjoy them when they come to your basketball arena.
I like it.
I
Hey,
think
Eric,
adding those teams would be great. I think it'd be great. But can anyone here in the chat tell me in the next 3 years, name one team in the Big 12 that's going to compete for a national championship? Can someone do that for me? Go on record with your name and you tell me a team from the Big 12. I don't mean Texas or Oklahoma. I mean currently in your conference. And you know what? Go ahead and throw those people that we just talked about there. Add them in. Tell me any of them are going to be going for a national championship. Can anyone do that? And so if you want to come at me and crying,
actually, hold on. I think we got an answer from McMuffin. Maybe Utah. He's got a point. Anyway, moving on. Erica.
Probably not.
Moving on. Erica points out Iowa has too many rivalries already. I want some of them to go away so we can play better teams and have a less predictable schedule. Yeah, Erica, you got some fun new teams. You're gonna have the Hawks going to UW. You get to do a little field meeting. And then Michigan man Jason. Yeah, Jason, there are a lot of nasty keyboard warriors. You know, there's a policy here in the Voice of College Football channel. We are respectful to people. We encourage laughing and fun and trash talk about teams, but we stay respectful to people. So, sorry, my computer's going crazy now. I got feeding too many feeds right now.
Tony?
Will,
get it wrong, Tony?
we sort of pulled Will in here.
Tony, can you hear us? So what people get it wrong is when they go from talking about a team or a conference.
I can hear you.
And they start. I think you're lagging, Tony. There's people get it wrong is when they start talking about when people are talking smack about a conference or a team, and then for some reason they want to make it personal, and that's where people miss the picture on smack talk. That's not smack talk. That's acting like an 8-year-old is what that is.
Yeah, we don't do that. So, you know, as always, that it's pretty easy. Yeah, if you want to talk about teams, talk about teams. If you want to talk about people, go somewhere else.
Or the conference or whatever. That's fine.
And Alex has another super chat. And Alex, thank you for your help, your support of the channel all the time, and especially tonight. He says ND can be a Big Ten partner without becoming an official partner. That would satisfy the TV gods. Alex, I think that is a great point. And not only that, remember, Notre Dame is already an affiliate member of the Big Ten. Notre Dame plays in the Big Ten for hockey, and they are an affiliate member of the Big Ten. In fact, when I do my little, I do these kind of silly Photoshop cartoons of the family picture, and people always want to have Notre Dame in the Big Ten family picture with Hopkins. So, yeah, no, I think that's a great idea. What would you guys think if Notre Dame sort of shifted their scheduling model from 5 ACC games to 5 Big Ten games?
I would love it.
That's it. Any way you can get Notre Dame into the Big Ten. I mean, I think they hold enough clout that they should be listened to. Again, I don't know. I don't know. Sorry. Part of me says yes. Let's get them. I'd love to have them as just a football only. But I mean, but then they can't compete for they're not competing for the championship. Why put one foot in? I really have to hear a salient answer on why Notre Dame's not joining the Big Ten. It truly makes no sense other than the fact there's some hurt feelings from the past.
And getting back to
a big sponsorship though. That money's real as well. I don't know how much that's going to play into it, but
yeah, the Under Armour sponsorship. I like Gregory Stewart asked a good question. He says Big Ten needs new hockey teams. You guys, what the UCLA what do they call them? The Cold Brews, I think. Isn't that their nickname, the Cold Brews?
I love the club hockey teams they have, but trying to compete with the big boys in the Big Ten, that would almost be tantamount to like child endangerment.
Arizona State's the big for hockey.
Hey, okay, nobody listens to me on this, but I have long said I thought Arizona State would be great for the Big Ten someday. I have long thought that.
They get the Phoenix market. It's a huge market, Phoenix. But,
here's another reason why USC always deserved unequal revenue sharing and why this didn't have to happen is because we played Notre Dame every year since 1926 with a couple of year exception during World War II, and then 1 year with COVID. So we've never played an FCS school. We've won 25 Rose Bowls, 37 Pac-10, Pac-8, Pac-12 championships. So, yeah, we deserve unequal revenue sharing. And, Florida State's complaining about it. Hey, pay for performance. That was another reason. So I'd love to have Notre Dame play 5 teams in the Big Ten every year. Can you imagine? And it's happening this year. Notre Dame's playing Ohio State. If they were to play Ohio State and Penn State even more, guess what? Ohio State and Penn State put themselves out on a limb and actually might take an L.
What moving on, I think is that have we have caught up. Thank you guys. And thank you so much to everybody who's been supporting the channel tonight. That makes a huge difference for Mark and the whole community, and we really appreciate it. And we're glad to have all you guys here. Somebody was just asking about wrestling. USC does not do wrestling. I don't know. Do you guys know, does UCLA? I don't think so either.
No. USC.
I don't know about Washington, Oregon.
USC has never had a wrestling program. There's Title IX issues there, although they could do it with the Galen Center. UCLA used to have a program until the late 70s. Right now, currently, I believe in the Pac-12, ASU, Oregon State, Stanford have programs.
And real quick, guys, if you could give this show a like, that would be a huge help. It really makes a difference for Mark and the channel. Hold on, Tim and Rick, I gotta step away. I gotta take a quick call. I'll be right back.
All right.
So you guys, I'll drop the link, you guys, if you want. If anyone wants.
Oops, just get a little feedback there. Tim?
Yeah, I was just saying, I just dropped the link, and if someone wants to call, I would love to hear from a fan of Washington or Oregon on this great day for you guys. I love always having Will here, but we haven't. I know there's a Washington or Oregon fan out there lurking somewhere. Love to hear your thoughts on it. Love to hear you guys kind of come at me because I've been calling you guys because I thought you guys were going to be stuck behind. And I did. And I said that the Pac-12 was going to become kind of like a farm league for USC, calling you guys AA Eugene. Well, the laughs on me. So if you guys want to call in and enjoy your great day, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Maybe you guys have inside information from your program. Please take a minute to call in, or other people in the Big Ten. What do you guys think? I know we have a lot of Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State fans. What do you guys think about this big move? A lot of you guys are out there sitting on your hands. Come join the show.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it, Tim. You didn't see this coming. None of us saw this coming. Nobody ever saw what happened. I think it was it last Wednesday, not 2 days ago, but the Wednesday before, when Colorado left the Pac-12. Who would have guessed in less than 10 days that this cataclysmic shift in college football in the landscape would happen? Nobody had this.
Oh, speaking of those dogs, what's going up, Pickles? How you doing?
Can everyone hear me?
Yeah,
Bow down, Huskies.
Another beautiful day in Big Ten country. I tell you, it's sunny and 80 degrees.
Nice.
Hey, congratulations, man.
Thank you. I'm pretty sure my blood pressure dropped about 30 points in a 2-minute span.
Listen, you guys, I've been trying to tell everyone this. Pacific Northwest fans are some of the most just rabid and knowledgeable fans you can possibly have to add. And it just when I did hear this, I mean, I joke around a lot, but when I thought about losing programs, never going up to Seattle again, right? Montlake, never, getting a chance to go to Austin. There's an outside chance I'm going this year. Now, probably not as much because it's not an urgency to do it anymore. I really am glad you guys are coming. For a while there, I was just like, I was going back and forth on the fact that because this does screw up the whole thing. I was already making plans of being in the Midwest for all these games every year. But now this changed everything. But I'll tell you what, it does alleviate, even though the travel wasn't a big portion. And quite frankly, flying from LA to Seattle is exactly how much shorter than flying from here to the Midwest. But it will be nice to keep some of these great traditions. There's a lot of history with UCLA and USC with Washington, and I'm glad that's going to continue.
Yeah, I'd say I definitely missed playing SC every year. Remembering back to the Pac-10 days, you knew you were seeing every team at least once a year. You could have a little smack talk with fans. And then you realize, there were certain weird schedules where it's like, oh, we're not playing SC for 2 years. Like, that kind of sucks. That doesn't seem right. So getting back to that, and I'm with you. It's like, it's very bittersweet for me because I really hope they continue the Apple Cup. And even I would love to see the Beavs as a non-conference, opponent pretty often. But, there's not a guarantee that kind of thing happens. And it's like, I don't know. It's like winning the lottery and a funeral all at once. It's a lot to take in.
And here's the thing too. A lot of people don't realize that the University of Washington is used to traveling. It's like a 1,900-mile round trip from LA. So you think about it, with Washington traveling to the LA schools down to the desert, they're way north. So if there's a team that's prepared as much as USC on traveling, it's Washington. Would you agree with that, Sergeant Pickles?
Absolutely. Two things real quick. One, if we never have to play in the desert again, it'll be too soon because that place is a house of horrors for us.
Right.
No matter if we play Arizona
you might leave. No, guys, get this. Hold on, Sergeant Pickles. You're going to leave the Pac-12 having none in Tempe since 2000.
That sounds about right. That does not shock me in the slightest.
Did you hear that? I think it's 2000 or 2001 or something like that is the last time you guys won in Tempe. And you played there this year, so you don't go back.
I'm pretty sure
You're
we
done.
haven't won in Tempe since before the Rose Bowl. So,
hey, you guys, if you want to get in, the queue is filling up quick. Christian and Mike will get to you guys in a minute. Pickles, it's really it is the best of both worlds. It is sad. I mean, I don't think I've seen any of our and I've seen them a lot in the Big 12 circles lately, but we've kind of lost touch with our Beaver fans. I haven't seen them in a while. I think they're getting ready to move over to the Big 12. What I'm sure you know that the Civil War is not going to end, right? I mean, that's one game that'll have to happen every year.
Yeah, and everything I've seen from up in Husky land, it sounds like the presidents have already had a talk about it. And funny enough, because Ohio State, our future conference mate, canceled on us for next year, we have an open non-conference slot that Wazoo can drop right into. So it works out pretty well.
That's actually really funny. And you're probably going to get Ohio State anyway.
I'd say 50-50 shot we end up with Ohio State. But, yeah, I haven't heard a ton from Wazoo and Beef fans. There have been a few here and there. It just sounds like they're just not in a good place because, I think they kind of know the options in front of them, and the best of it is the Big 12. And nothing against the Big 12. It'd be Big 12 would be lucky to have them. They fit in really well there, but they're losing just as much, all that Pac tradition as the rest of us. And I think, we can kind of justify it to ourselves. We have all these Rose Bowl connections, all these traditional matchups. And, I don't think they quite have that connection to the Big 12. So it's bittersweet.
Yeah. And just really quickly, Golden Blue Dude saw this stuff a couple of years ago. Love you, Chris. All you guys remember Golden Blue Dude, just loved it. Can you imagine he's up there in heaven looking down, laughing at everybody right now? Just saying, I told all you guys this crap was coming. I told you it was going to happen. So, love you, Chris. That's a great memory. Thank you, Blanket, for bringing that up.
Yeah, I was proud to have my University of Washington and University of Montana helmet on his background there. So, I was thinking of him today, and it's just a lot of vindication, a lot of I told you so. I'd definitely be eating some humbled pie from him for some of my takes.
Hey, Pickles. Selfishly, I'm glad that Washington and Oregon are in the Big Ten. And the reason I say that is I never had the opportunity to go sailgate up at Montlake at the University of Washington. And the way this was going to play out and USC going to the Big Ten without Washington, that was going to be something I was never going to get to experience. I look forward to that happening in the future. For all the Big Ten fans that are out there, please explain what the experience is like sailgating, if you've ever done that before, if you have friends or family who have done that on Mont Lake before a University of Washington football game.
Yeah, I've never ridden across on the boat, but I've been down to the docks and everyone. And yeah, for anyone who doesn't know, Washington is one of the 3 Division I schools I know of that have sailgating, and the other 2 are on rivers, so they don't count. But you can catch, if you know somebody, there's tons of boats. They all moor up on Lake Washington right outside the stadium, and the entire stadium, as you're watching the game, looks out to it, so it's quite the spectacle. But people literally have barbecues strapped to the back of their fancy yachts, all those rich people that live on the lake, and they're grilling up and tailgating. So I would encourage any Big Ten fan, go down there, check it out. I believe there's like a taxi one that you can pay money and ride across on a boat. So check it out. It's a great time, but it's exciting, and I don't know how friendly the Ohio State and Michigan fans of the world will be, but for non-conference games, I've had good experiences so far with them up in Seattle.
Cool.
Well, Pickles, you will be celebrating. I'm sure of that for a long time to come. I'm glad you guys hopped up on the. It's kind of weird. Like some people talk about getting it saved by the lifeboat, but really this is like you're on your yacht and you're sinking, and then all of a sudden a luxury liner pulls up and says, "Hey," with a bunch of women and the Playboy bunnies and everyone and cheerleaders representing all the universities saying, "Hey, come on board!" Right? Some of these other stops maybe not as attractive, but I'm glad some schools are getting a hop in a dinghy. Other people are hopping on a luxury liner, and so I'm glad you guys are one of them.
Yeah, you kind of have to eat the smack talk of other Big Ten schools. A lot of them are doing it in a friendly way, but it's like, you hop up and you're like, help, save me. And it's like, okay, fine. I guess we'll bring Washington too. Your friend Fight On Rusty's had a lot of good ones today.
Remember, listen, Rusty, you got to remember this. Rusty's just trolling you.
I know.
You got to be the smart fan that laughs. Just laugh at the wit and the humor, but don't dive in, okay?
Oh, absolutely. I told him yesterday I got a good laugh out of him because I told him I'm glad UCLA fans are piping down because they know they're absolutely lucky to be getting full share. They just have the luxury of geography.
Well, on Twitter, someone actually did say that. They said, like, do you ever get the feeling like Arizona's no, not Arizona. Sorry. They were saying Utah. They're making a shot at Utah. That Utah's that person in your group that just showed up for the A- and didn't contribute. I said, no, that's UCLA. But
yeah, that's absolutely UCLA.
All right. Awesome, man. Thank you, Pickles. Congratulations, man.
Thanks again, guys. I'm excited for it's going to be an interesting final year of the Pac. We'll see how it shapes out, but go Dogs.
Crazy.
Hey, you know what? Also, thank you for spreading the hate out a little bit. There's a target on 2 backs. Arizona's going to have their target. We're all going to be targets now. So this way, we're looking at having a really rough season. Going to all these away games and people just absolutely screaming bloody murder for good reason. But now thank you for taking a couple bullets for us as well.
Absolutely. Can't wait.
Hey, I'm calling my shot right now.
Dubs up for you. Dubs up.
I'm calling my shot right now. When Arizona visits the Coliseum, those squirrely fans are going to start chanting Big 12, Big 12, Big 12. Because that's who they are. They're not a football school. They're a basketball school. And they'll tell you that.
And they're a basketball school with 1 national championship. Good job. Boom.
That's funny. We might have similar numbers of Final Fours to they do, and we're from USC. Anyway, thank you, Pickles.
All right, see you guys.
We'll see you. Go Dogs. Guys, a couple quick super chats. Gigster Squid says nothing like sailing near SLU on an airport landing strip. Where is SLU? Is that UW? Gigster Squid, tell us where that is. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe St. Louis, but
it could be. I don't know that. I don't know. Gigster Squid, tell us where that is. Matador Bike says, I have to say this. You're saying no one wants schools in the Big 12. Fair enough. For the TV partners want numbers. Big 12 country is vastly underpopulated compared to East Mississippi. That's absolutely true. But look at also, Mike. The most populated region of the country, which is the Northeast, is the worst at college football. So, it is all about having games.
And most apathetic. Here's the thing. So that part of the country is beautifully saturated with football fans. So when you talk about Big 12 country, there are great fans and high percentages. You go to the Pacific, if you go up to New England, that area, that's all really the Northeast. That's all professional sports. You know, there aren't big college fans up there, I don't think, unless obviously like in New York, Manhattan, and there's fans from every school working in there. But I mean, in general, the area is not like when you get out towards like upstate New York, you're not seeing a lot of college football fans, I would imagine.
And I think we already got this. Did we already get this one? David making a
David,
comment.
their team's chopping at the bit to play Notre Dame. That's BS, man. I'm sorry.
You guys are on your way. You're on your way. And David, again, thank you for helping support the channel. Hey, next up we got Christian. Christian, welcome. How's it going?
Oh, pretty good. Thanks for having me on, guys. Big Wisconsin fan. There's only one true W in the Big Ten, Ryan, or Pickles. That's Wisconsin for us. But I had a couple questions. I know USC's big on baseball. I know Wisconsin doesn't have a program. I think a couple other teams in the Big Ten don't. Do you think that will cause Wisconsin to start a baseball program? Now they're getting all these pretty good baseball programs into the Big Ten. Do you think that will make them start baseball?
USC's baseball is trying to get, we have the most national championships, but of late they've had some bad, just like football, it's some bad choices with coaching. They had a pretty good season last year. Kind of got screwed over for regionals, but UCLA as a team has had some really good success in baseball. They're coming along. I know that Oregon and Washington both have some pretty strong programs too. So yeah, you guys, I wouldn't say national brands in baseball, but there are some strong teams coming to the Big Ten.
Christian, that's an excellent question, and let me just provide this information. Tim just outlined some great programs with baseball in the Pac-12. Before 2009, the SEC didn't do really anything in baseball. LSU had won, I believe, 5 or 6 championships up to that point, and Georgia won one like in the 70s or 80s. That was it. But with the influx of money with football into the SEC, now the SEC thinks, and they're the best baseball conference. They'll let you know that. But that didn't happen since 2009. That's to say that, you know what, with the resources that the Big Ten is going to have moving forward, there's no reason why the Big Ten can't develop excellent baseball programs, because guess what? Players are going to go where the coaching's at, where the opportunities are at, and that's a definite opportunity for the Big Ten to grow their baseball programs. If they could do it in the SEC, no reason why they can't do it in the Big Ten.
And yes, just a reminder, USC does have 12 national titles, more than double any other program.
And one of the hard things about baseball, though, is that you do have Title IX consideration. Now, Title IX and where we're going to go with athletes as employees status and all that, may kind of go out the window. So we'll see. It wouldn't surprise me with now having Washington, Oregon, USC, UCLA. We may see things like the Big Ten hopefully maybe add beach volleyball. Or some things like that where some of the schools will have it and some of them won't. But I think we may see more of that. More of those outside teams and more of those inside teams, particularly if, as a lot of the rumors go, the Big Ten next starts to look to the south.
Yeah. And then, what do you guys think about Olympic sports staying regionally? I was talking to my friend about that today. He played at Oregon State for baseball, and his girlfriend, I guess his wife now, she played beach volleyball for Oregon State, and I guess her younger sister is supposed to go to Arizona State and play one of their sports, and they're all freaking out about how they're going to go to some of the away games and stuff now, then joining the Big Ten. Do you think the Olympic sports will ever go back to regional sports, or do you just think they'll stay in the Big Ten?
Well, so it depends on the Olympic sport, because first of all, a lot of the Olympic sports already travel nationally. Like if you look at what USC does for tennis, they're playing at Penn State, they're playing at tournaments in Miami, they're playing at Texas Tech, they're playing up in New York. So they're everywhere. And so like a lot of times we think of the Olympic sports like in the old days of like, oh, they probably get in a van and drive there. But like, no, they're playing a national schedule already. USC beach volleyball was actually playing like just down the way from us a few months ago. So there is already a lot of national competition. The other thing is a lot of Olympic sports, some of them also don't have season. Like in the Big 12, for example, they're the most of this. A lot of their sports don't even have seasons. They just have one tournament at the end of the year, so they're already local. The sports that do have a lot of travel that it gets overwhelming can be baseball, softball, soccer, volleyball, and basketball. Those are the ones that are the hard travel. But the other ones tend to have not as much as you'd think.
Yeah, anything else for us, Christian?
Did we lose Christian?
I'm not sure. Christian, you there? I think we lost Christian.
Did we lose Christian? Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, we've got a couple super chats real quick, and then we'll bring in Cascadia Mike. Late night alum says, I did my undergrad at Ohio State while my girlfriend did hers at Oregon. House is divided. Welcome to the Big Ten. Ducks, he means UW, USC, and UCLA. Hey, late night alum, go Buckeyes. Thank you for that. Thank you for the super chat. Yeah, you're going to have to get one of those like house divided like Oregon and Ohio State shirts now. Those are real popular where I came from. Oh, there you guys. Thank you again. He said meant UW, not Wazoo. Yeah, UW's awesome. We're glad to have him. Hey, let's welcome Cascadia Mike.
Hey, fellas,
Mike,
how are you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Being a Ducks fan, today's a great day. I'm very excited to be part of the Big Ten. I kind of had a feeling it was coming. I watched a lot of your guys' show and talk about it. So one question I got for you guys here is, now that we know the Big Ten championship game is always in Indy, do you think in the next couple of years, once that contract's done with Indy there, it's could possibly move to a place like Vegas?
I have a better location for it, and then I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. So you look at this map. Just imagine if this group of teams were to get together and have like maybe their two best teams play each other. I might know a stadium in Pasadena that's good at hosting that.
Why? So all the Big Ten fans can cry that it was a home game for USC, and that's why they lose all the time. I'd rather
do that anyway.
I'd rather play in that aircraft carrier they call the Big Ten Dome. Is what I'll call it. So we can get rid of all these lame comments about the fact they have a week to be out here and acclimate, and the fact that the weather's always immaculate, and the fact that the tickets are 50-50, and the fact that USC doesn't play the games. They play one game every 2 years in the Rose Bowl. So I'd rather just go there so I don't have to hear the excuses, to be honest. Although,
Perfect,
yes,
I think Vegas would be fun.
I hear a lot of that from the Big Ten fans talking about, the West Coast teams, you have trouble playing in that snow. But, look at what we got for teams on the West Coast. You can play Utah in November, Colorado. You got snow plus the elevation, piss and rain in Seattle or Eugene, and then 110 degrees in Arizona. So we play in all types of stuff. So I think that's a non-issue Big Ten fans don't realize.
Absolutely, 100%.
What would you guys think about Vegas?
I personally would love to see Vegas, just for the fact that, I live up in Canada on the West Coast, so it's a quick, easy flight for me to go there. Because I ain't flying to Indy, that's for sure. But I said everybody can get to Vegas easy from anywhere in the country, and I think it's a neutral site because it's not really in anybody's real, kind of California or the Pacific Northwest or in the Midwest, right? So.
We got to remember though that Vegas in December isn't in like Vegas. In the spring or in the early fall. It's not exactly the funnest. It could be pretty cold and windy as crap. It's not. Granted, I'd much rather have the heat because then Rick could go golfing. You can mitigate the heat, but when the wind's like 60-mile-an-hour gusts like they have sometimes, it's probably what you don't want to be golfing in. But I like Vegas. I kind of outgrew the gambling part of it, but Vegas is a fun town.
If SC starts to win, they might put it in Jerry World.
Oh yeah, that's exactly where USC loves to play football games, Jerry's World. No, I'll be happy. I'll be happy if we never play in that monstrosity ever again. To be honest with you,
that Jerry World is not good to us.
Yeah, Will, that's where we were eviscerated by the Tide. If you forgot in 2016. So yeah, it's like I think there's still Trojan blood on that field. I don't want to go back there now. We're good.
Yeah. Also, there's too many videos of us pretending to be Catwoman before the game.
You know the worst part about that, Tony, is if you look at the beginning, guess who's standing right there for that show? Can you imagine John McKay watching the Trojans do that stuff? Or more recently, even Pete Carroll. Do you think Pete Carroll would allow that to happen? They say Pete Carroll is a player's coach. There's no way in hell Pete Carroll lets that happen before a football game.
Pete Carroll does not let them impersonate Catwoman before the show, before the game. And hey guys, the Big Ten Network has put out their new map just moments ago. There it is from the Big Ten Network. This is big.
Wow, there it is.
I can't wait to see what Dave Resveen had to say later tonight.
So basically, take a look at that.
There it is.
Cascadia Mike.
Official.
How does that make you feel? Look at the entire Pacific coastline there. You got it covered. Big Ten has it covered. Washington, Oregon, and California.
It'd be nice to see Stanford and Cal inside there. I know some of the Big Ten fans don't want that, but I think we need a couple more West Coast teams. Would be nice.
It's just running out of spots. I like that as well, but it's just getting to the point where there's just. I mean, again, I'm holding out for Notre Dame. Will, like I just see it eventually happening.
We'll see. It could happen. It could happen.
If not grabbing Cal, the Bay Area is a pretty good market as well. I mean, but again, this more than anything, this is showing that they're not really worried about that. It'd be great to see Florida added to this thing, but then it's weird when you look at it geographically now. If you go down and grab Miami and Florida State, let's just say that's even on the books to happen. It would be a kind of a weird map. They'd be on a little island by themselves, kind of like UCLA and USC were. So,
well,
hey,
that's an idea that what you just mentioned about Florida State and Miami. What about having the Big Ten championship game down in Florida, right there in their neck of the woods, so they could watch and kind of torture them? Hey, get out of the ACC. Come join the Big Ten.
USC loves playing USC loves playing in Miami.
We love the Orange Bowl.
Absolutely, brother. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, just go ahead and put the game in their backyard. Kind of like call that a little recruiting trip. Go down to South, do a little recruiting trip. Yeah.
Recruiting trip. I like it.
What do you think of the stadium, Mike? Would you like to do a championship down there in Florida?
Well, I would love that because I got a lot of family and my in-laws in Florida, which are diehard Gators fans. So it's nice to be bringing our stuff down there in their face a little bit because it's been SEC in my face for the last 2 decades here. So, yes, absolutely. LBC, let's do it.
Yep. We know something about the SEC. We've had some success. Yeah.
I like it.
I appreciate you guys. I said I've been following you guys for quite a while. It's good to get on the show. I appreciate you having me on.
Oh, thank you. Call in more often.
Thanks, man.
And we got lots of fans up in Canada here that we're big Pac12 fans and stuff like that. We're sorry to see it go, but we're happy to see us going to a conference here. I think for the better, and I'm happy along the ride to continue watching your guys' show next year. We're with you guys.
But hold on, before you go, Mike. I'll tell you what I always wanted, which is obviously not happening now. I always wanted the Pac-12 to incubate a team at UBC.
That would be great. That's in my neck of the woods there. So, but
would that be fun? BC Place filled with Thunderbird fans. It's not happening now, but
it definitely is not happening. That would be awesome. So I said we got some good Canadian football up here, but it's nice.
Hey, can you guys imagine if we gave Lincoln Riley an extra 10 yards of end zone?
That'd be a little scary. So.
I love it. Hey, thanks, Mike. Let's go Ducks.
Guys. Go Ducks.
We'll see ya. All right, next up to bat, we got Dr. C.
Dr. Hey, how C, are you guys doing?
Good, how you doing?
Thanks. Doing great. Hey, shout out to you guys. This is a heck of a crowd. We're in the almost 500 people here. That's awesome. That's really great to see.
Well, thank you for watching and everybody else.
Yeah. So I called Mark earlier today, and I was kind of, I don't know. I really hate the way that college football is going. Obviously, it's turning into as Tim was saying, the networks control the conferences now, right? So I really like the idea of the regional, Pac-10, Pac-12, your Big Ten, your SEC, your ACC, regionally. But that's a thing of the past. What I was saying, do you guys think if the 16 or 12 team playoff would have been implemented 8-10 years ago, that this conference realignment wouldn't have been happening because people would be invested in their conferences having a chance to win a title instead of it was 2 and then only 4 and it being 2 SEC teams, a Big Ten team, and some random? Do you think if we would have had the 16 team playoff 10 years ago, this stuff doesn't happen? Realignment?
That's a great question. And that's quite a possibility because now, like you said, it's a 12-team playoff, and you have exponentially more teams that think they have a shot at qualifying and getting in. You'll have debate depending on what part of the country you're from. Obviously, those in the South, a lot of them don't like it because it doesn't really matter. You're going to get 3 or 4 SEC teams in the semifinals, and you'll get 2 in the finals. So that's their opinion. But Dr. C, you bring a great point because there's a lot of programs out there that for the longest time, they've had to win national championships through a bowl system or through the BCS or now the 4-team playoff that for one reason or another, the systems have not been equitable, been fair. And that's not my opinion. That's the opinion of the schools that are out there, the conferences. So that's a great point. Who knows? Quite possibly.
Yeah. Also, I think one of the things that I've also found hard to believe is, football is the number 1 sport in the country, hands down. I think only NASCAR beat it a couple of times back in the day when NASCAR was in its, it had such great numbers television-wise. But the fact that you cannot sell football to a network when it's this popular, it just boggles my mind with the leadership of the Pac-12. I know that and one of the reasons is the Pac-12 sin, if you will, is the fact that it did not have a dominant team. USC was, what was it? The sanctions destroyed it. Oregon didn't step up. No one stepped up to be that dominant team to make a run at the playoff. Is that what caused the Pac-12 to die, or what are your guys' opinion?
Well, no, I mean, Oregon did make it. So they didn't win, but they made a good run. Oregon's been strong, but they haven't been able to go over the hump. Washington, just as recently as 2016, was able to make a run. But no, there hasn't been a program that equaled, the problem is USC was down, but it wasn't just the sanctions. USC did a lot of self-sanction as well. And it's kind of glad USC had to really hit rock bottom in order to figure stuff out, get rid of they had this propensity to hire ex-football stars as your AD, right? And just that we were just getting schooled left and right. We were running the program like it was the 1970s, and just not giving the coaches what they need. And it truly makes what Pete Carroll did even more amazing. The fact is they just weren't investing in the football program. I think that the reason the Pac-12 it went down wasn't just the fact that Larry Scott, who gets the majority of it, but also, let's face it, none of these programs were playing at a level where they needed to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're also going to find out, Mr. C or Dr. C, that there was a level, and this will come out, there was a level of collusion by the TV networks, supposedly playing poor, and they had the economic situation that's been happening, specifically ESPN, but they didn't want to offer what the Pac-12 thought they were worth. I mean, you can go back and forth. That's going to be debatable. But You brought up the point. How can they not get a TV contract in 13 months? How was there not money? And now all of a sudden there's money for these teams that are jumping ship, and there's making accommodations where supposedly before with the Big 12 contract, Fox wasn't going to pay any money for an added school. And ESPN, I guess, was going to pay a certain amount for a Power 5 or a certain amount for a G5. But you can't tell me there wasn't some level of collusion. What do you think about that?
Man, I'm not sure. There's so many, conspiracy theories out there. The latest thing that I'm hearing is, and I'm sure you guys have heard that the Mountain West and the Pac-10 can get together, or even the talks of the ACC and the Pac-12 trying like last-ditch efforts to save their conferences. But yeah, I mean, the whole, behind the scenes, I've heard many different theories. I don't know which one's true, but it's just shocking to me that, I felt one of the big things that the Pac-12 really did a poor job in was having these games at 11 o'clock at night. No one on the East Coast or the South is staying up to watch Cal versus Oregon at 11 o'clock at night, right? And it ends at 1 o'clock. I mean,
well, the weird thing is they actually do. Like they actually do pretty well in ratings.
Really?
Yeah, so they actually do pretty well in ratings. Because the thing is people sort of misunderstand the idea that it's like the rabid fans that are like the core of it. But at the end of the day, like it's a TV product, right? So it's like your uncle who coughs like all night and can't sleep. Like there's 1,000 of those uncles, and they're watching the TV for every like one fan. Or you'll hear another weird myth is like the idea that like the late games, it's all about people who have like a double, triple, quadruple parlay in gambling. And it's like, yeah, no, it's really about like your grandpa that doesn't sleep and he watches the game. So there's a lot of just people watch games. Like, so we actually did a thing. We're going to do a special on Mark's channel later this fall, but we actually took a look at 7 years of TV data, and you can predict 88% of the viewership just based on what channel it's on, the ranks of the teams, and the histories of the teams. And you can know to 88% accuracy how many people are going to watch it. So really the TV stuff is more of a product than people give it credit for.
Well, see, one thing though, with the numbers, sheer numbers you're talking about, Tony, is true, but there's no undeniable that a lot of the media or the exposure issue, right? It was bad for years because people weren't staying up late at night to watch. Let's say, I don't know, I'm gonna blank out his name. The running back for the Carolina Panthers now, running back for Stanford, McCaffrey.
Yeah.
Part of the reason why he didn't get that guy should have won the Heisman. But the fact is that nobody were watching those late night games, or if they could even see the game, because I'm sure Stanford wasn't watching any games or putting a lot of big time games out there, even when they were winning. So I think that there is something to the fact that the exposure does hurt being on those late night games.
Well, and the other thing with the Pac-12 that was always the killer is, remember, the Pac-12 owned its own network, wholly owned. Like the SEC network is not owned. Those are the ACC network. Those are just run by ESPN. Those are ESPN channels. The Pac-12 owned its own channel, and so the Pac-12 put about half of its games on its own network. And that was the problem, was that those games weren't seen because they weren't on the network. And it's a double whammy, right? Because so when the Pac-12 was talking about doing more streaming, the assumption was, okay, we'll do more streaming, but it'll be for more money. And the problem with the Pac-12 network, or this recent Apple situation that they just had, is that if you're not getting the money and you're not being seen, then you're 0 for 2. It's like you got to pick one of the two, and you can't have neither.
I love this comment by Conundrum in the chat. If I fall asleep with the game on, they still get the ratings, and I get the sleep. That was me in that was me in Pac-12 After Dark back in the day in high school.
Well, one of the things too is, although that old man that coughs and can't go to bed watches the game, the young folks that are that 12-year-old who has the potential of later on when he goes to college of playing football, he's not thinking about the Pac-12. he's thinking about the Big Ten, the SEC, because they're on prime time. That's one of the issues.
Well, and that's one of the things that's an issue. But I'll tell you also, if we step back, let's also remember we are right now at the first time in history when you could watch any game. Like you can right now, any college football game you want to see, you can see it. That was not always the case. I mean, I remember even during the height of USC's runs, when I was living overseas and I was living in DC and New York, and I couldn't see all the games. I remember trying to like find a bar in DC that would show the USC Idaho game that was just like impossible to find. And so like, we are uniquely at a point in time right now when you can actually see everything. Because that kid back in the day, if he was in the Midwest, he didn't get to see you. He could get to see like USC against like Notre Dame and UCLA, and that'd be it.
Yeah. And in many ways that kept the sports regional, you know. So the basis, if they wanted to watch football, well, if you lived in LA, you weren't really watching Illinois play. You were watching Pac-10, you know. And that's a great point. But another thing to think about as well is, you know, the fact that it's really sad to me, you know, the Pac-12 I really enjoyed. You know, I've told you guys a million times, I'm from California, then moved to the South, Arkansas, right? And I loved whenever I remember Georgia coming out to Arizona State and barely beating them, you know, and all the people in the South would tell me, oh, Georgia's going to go and kill Arizona State. They play soft in the Pac-10, you know, it was the Pac-10 then. And I mean, they barely beat Arizona. So it was always great to see the Pac-10 compete, and that's gone now, which it's incredibly sad to me seeing this happen. So what happens now? I can't read any more about it. It just bums me out. Is the Pac-12 completely done? Do they merge with the Mountain West, the ACC? Is there any hope?
Well, I mean, we'll find out. Can I first hold on? I want to put up a graphic to answer that question. Can I first show you guys just an elite tier troll job that was just put out?
Sure.
This is an elite tier conference realignment troll job. The more things change, the more they stay the same.
Who is that, Tony?
The 8.
Tony, what's that? What? I don't understand what that is. Ivy League plays football?
Oh god.
Anyway, I just thought that was a great, that is a great trolling tweet. Is that like right now today? Is that not a great trolling tweet with the little Ivy, even the little Ivy emoji? Yeah, it made me laugh.
Stanford can go there, you know. Stanford's kind of they think they're an Ivy League.
No, they were rejected. The Ivy League rejected Stanford and Cal in 1956.
Oh,
and actually, it's how we got the Pac-12, because after they rejected for the Ivy League, they had to figure out what to do, and they created the Pac-12. So, you know, here's the situation right now as we see it. We don't know what's going to happen with Washington State and Oregon State. There are a lot of rumors around the Big 12 country, and I don't pretend to know what the Big 12 is going to do from day to day, so I don't pretend to know. But a lot of the Big 12 people think that they are going to try to talk to and do something to get either 2 or 4 of those schools into their league. So I guess we'll see. There's a lot of I talked to somebody today from CUSA, and I know CUSA and the AAC and the Mountain West are trying to figure out what they could do, because remember, the Pac-12 is a NCAA legislatively designated autonomy conference. So for any of those conferences, if they wanted to do like a reverse merger into the Pac-12, that would give them NCAA autonomy powers. And that's a really valuable thing. So there may be something with that. I think we're going to have to see, what goes here in the coming days. It is, I will say, it's a really, really, really bad day to be in Berkeley or Palo Alto, especially because the chancellor from Cal is retiring and the president from Stanford is being run out of town in disgrace in 2 weeks. So it's not a good day for them. And Washington State's in huge financial troubles. And the poor Beavs are just doing. Beavs are doing literally everything right that you can do as an athletic department, and I'm horrified for the Beavs.
You know, and the sad part is, and I told this to Mark, I said the last thing with this conference realignment that the college presidents, the board, you know, the regents, whoever is making these decisions, the last people they're thinking about are the students, the student athletes, and the students.
Yeah, the travel is going to be tough for them. I feel bad.
Well,
that's an afterthought.
I mean, it's going to be tough for Utah. It's going to be tough for Arizona. I mean, getting from Tucson to, I mean, the thing of it is, you forget one of the things that the Pac-12 was great at. No other conference other than the Ivy League was as good at this. Is the Pac-12 schools were all in pairs and all right by giant airports.
Yeah.
And so you could have what they would do in a lot of these sports, in a lot of the Olympic sports, is they could leave class at lunchtime on Friday, you know, be in class Friday morning, leave at lunchtime on Friday, play a game Friday night somewhere, take Saturday off, play another game Sunday, you know, early afternoon somewhere, and be home in bed by midnight. And you can't do that when you're talking about trying to get to Manhattan, Kansas, or Lubbock. You know, Morgantown's actually not that hard to get to, but they have a lot of schools that are great schools in awesome, fun college towns, because I've been to a bunch of them. They're just not by the airport, and so it makes it kind of hard.
Yeah.
Now, the Utah to Provo, that'll be nice. That'll be a good trip. That's an easy one. That's an easy drive.
That's a car ride, yeah.
Yeah, Tucson to Morgantown via Orlando. You know, there'll be a lot of that. But we'll see. Nick Muffin actually puts up a great point here. Beavs leadership is some of the best aligned in the nation. Very sad for them. I agree with you, Nick. Their new president is awesome. She's really cool, and their AD's great. Their coaches are great. I'll tell you, I think the Big 12, and I said this on Twitter the other day, and people lambasted me for this. If I was the Big 12, I would find a way to add Oregon State and Washington State. I think they added so much to the conference. Even if you had to be a little dilutive. I mean, at the end of the day, they're so big on this, like they're measuring, like it's dong measuring with their media rights number. Like, even if it was a little dilutive, that would be a great ad for the conference. I wouldn't stress about the number as much as the value.
I would love to see the Beavs just step into the Big 12 and win it. Like, that would be great.
Oh, they could.
Mm-hmm.
With DJU and that defense and those running backs, I mean, they got a good team. That would actually be great.
Yeah, I mean, they're the dark horse, and I wouldn't even call them a dark horse to win the Pac-12.
Yeah, no, that's gonna be fun. Hey, Dr. C, anything else?
Awesome. That's it. Hey, I really appreciate, even though it makes me incredibly sad to see the Pac-12 go away, but thanks for taking my call. Love
hey, we're always glad to have you.
Good work. Thanks.
Thanks. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. All right. Next up, we got friend of the show, Jackson, host of the Jacksonian. Jackson, how you doing?
I'm doing all right, friends. How y'all doing?
Good.
I'm sad for the Beavs and Cougs, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I'm worried about what this means for the Oregon State rivalries and the Washington State rivalries. I'm kind of like, oh man, what's going to happen to those shows? I mean, to those rivalries. Excuse me. I'm just like, oh man.
I don't see how they go away. One, travel's not an issue because they're in the same state. They're right next to each other. It's not like USC flying to South Bend or vice versa.
Right.
And so whatever conference that they end up in, whether it's 8 or 9 game conference, they're still going to have 3 to 4 games to pick. And I can't imagine, as far as just making money, why you would not turn down the opportunity, because obviously TV is going to be interested in that rivalry, as well as the gate. Your fans will be there. I mean, granted, all 4 of those schools, right, for the Civil War and for the Apple Cup, those fans, they pack their stadiums anyway. But I can't see something that's been that long a story tradition going away. So I think and all this craziness, I think it's probably one of the safest things. Now, granted, I think Texas to Texas A&M, they stopped playing, right? That was That's an issue, but I don't think that's the same kind of bad blood that you're going to have here with the Oregon schools or the Washington schools. What do you think, Tony?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that I know they'll keep it up. I think they can sort it through the scheduling. You know, that the value in that is great. Those are great rivalries, great games, and I'm sure they'll work it out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, after all, there is like one non-conference slate that I know of because of Oregon going to the Big Ten. That Oregon State, the Oregon Ohio State game from 2032 to 2033. Well, that's going to get moved up. Obviously, we won't have to wait another decade for that game.
Yeah, that game will happen soon.
Yeah, that is for sure. I know that there's going to be some non-conference slates get moved up to conference games, like Colorado Houston, because like Colorado's joining Big 12. That was going to be a home and home for 2025 and 2026, and I know Arizona had some home and homes with BYU. That's going to get moved up as a conference game. So, and the bright side I can think of is BYU Utah coming back, because I've been dying for that game to come back as an annual game. Honestly, I've been wanting it to come back on rivalry week, but then it's like, oh no, does that mean the Pac-12's going? Oh no.
Wait, Jackson, you're saying you've been waiting for that? Of all the rivalries out there that are kind of currently off the table, that's the one you're looking for to come back?
Well, there's plenty more rivalries on my Christmas list, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that BYU, Utah were playing each other a lot, but they weren't like playing each other all the time. I am happy that USC Notre Dame is staying, obviously. I know that they said that. Well, I know that Lincoln Riley said a week or so ago that they're going to find a way to keep it as an annual game. I mean, I just don't see how that game goes away. I mean, no way. That's not happening.
Will, maybe if you guys don't join the Big Ten, maybe we'll make it go away. Maybe a little more leverage to get you guys moving.
Oh, my gosh. You wouldn't go that far. You wouldn't go that far.
Nah. But
don't test us. I'm just kidding.
But yeah, we're in a weird time right now with this realignment. It's just
it's gonna be wild.
Yeah, just really wild.
Our friend Sergeant Pickles said Washington and Washington State are already in talks to schedule the Apple Cup.
Yeah, I can't see that. That would make no sense for that to split.
Yeah.
That's a huge issue for the whole state too. And somebody who brought, I forget, one of the super chats earlier talked about the importance of like potential political issues, and one of the best ways to make sure you don't have political issues is to make sure that those teams still continue to play each other.
Yeah. I wonder if they're gonna like still play each other on rivalry week, or is it just gonna be like a September game? That's what I'm wondering, to be honest.
Well, they might do what USC and UCLA, or USC and Stanford, Notre Dame have done, which is do it at the last game of the year.
Okay.
And Jackson, I don't know if you know this, the way what USC and Stanford do with Notre Dame is USC and Stanford always play in like week 2. Yeah. So that then they have the open date later in the season, which would normally be a non-conference game, but they both have the open date later in the season for the Notre Dame game.
That makes perfect sense as to why USC Stanford always played each other every year on week 2. I was like, I wonder why they do that.
Yeah, I think it's been like 10 years. What is it, Will? Like 10 years or so they've done that? Maybe even long. It may have even been way longer. It's just I remember being told that, and I was like, "Oh, that's why we always."
I think it started in 2012, if I had to guess.
Yeah,
okay.
2012.
Because I think 2011 that Andrew Luck Matt Barkley game was more mid-season, but I think 2012 is when they started it.
Yeah, the 2011 game was 2 days before Halloween. The 2012 game was in week 3. 2013 was on 2 weeks before rivalry week. That was on Saturday Night Football on ABC.
Okay.
And 2014, I believe that's when they started doing it around week 2.
Okay.
Cool. Well, all right. Well, hey, I know we've had a last call for calls. I think we're getting good here to start wrapping it up. Jackson, any final thoughts here?
I'm just sad about what's happened today with the Pac-12. But Tony, Tim, thank you guys for having me on the USC show. And
Anytime. Thanks for coming.
Anytime. Everyone check out the USC live show
and Jackson, where do they find you?
You can find me on YouTube. You can find me on Twitter, and you can find me on Instagram, and you can find me on Threads.
Oh, Threads. I like it. There we go. You're with it.
Yep. I mean, I'm just getting it all out there. Throw my take here and there.
Thank you, Jackson. Thanks for calling in.
Bye, Jackson.
Thank you for having me on, gents.
Will, any final thoughts here as we get ready to wrap up?
I mean, I'm just sad for the Cougs, sad for the Beavs. I'm sure the Cal and Stanford schools will find their way into either the Big Ten or I don't know. I have faith that they'll join the Big Ten. But yeah, you can just find me over at Will ND. I've been having tech issues, so I can't I'm trying to get my Wi-Fi set up in my new apartment. But once that happens, I'll start doing some videos. And yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Marcus_era. Sometimes have hot takes on there, and
they're always good.
And other I like to retweet funny stuff too if I see it. So yeah. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Thanks for joining us. Tim, the Ducks and the Dogs are with us in the Pac-12. What are your final thoughts?
Yeah, I got the only downside of this is I was looking forward to really playing everyone in the Big 12 every other year, so it was a nice clean cut. But I gotta say, people want to say this is the end of the Pac-12. Is it? Because really, it just seems like you have the 4 top teams in the Big 12 kind of invading the Big 10. So I hope they're ready for us. Each one of these programs brings a storied history. Each one of these brings oh no, I can't say that, Ducks. You guys haven't won national championship. But I would say that 3 of the 4 have won national championships. And the Ducks have been, oh God, can I get this out? The Ducks have been a really solid program over the past decade. And if they can just keep Knight alive for at least another 15, 20 years, they can continue their success, dropping them bags. But what we will see is a continuation again, because there really never is any ending or to a lot of this stuff. It just kind of morphs into another one. Someone said the Southwest Conference, yeah, but really a lot of the Southwest Conference, a lot of those teams they kind of moved on and formed the big part of the Big 12. So I mean, you can look at it however you want. Is it a beginning? Is it an end? Is it a new beginning and an end for some? I do echo the thoughts on the Beavers and the Cougars, and I will say it again. There were 2 programs that stopped USC in the Carroll years. It wasn't the Big Ten. Nobody in the Big Ten was stopping Carroll. It wasn't these other big programs. It was the Cougs and it were the Beavers. And it's a shame. I do think they will be picked up by the Big 12. And I also think these guys talk about invading the Big 10. The Pac-12 is also going to invade the Big 12. Wouldn't it be funny, Tony, if, I don't know, maybe UCLA, Oregon, Washington, USC started winning in the Big 10, and I don't know, maybe the Arizona schools, that's probably a little less such as, but let's say Utah rolls in the Big 12.
I saw where your thought process was going, Tim, and I liked it until you had
momentum a little bit. But I could see that. But if they do let the Beavs in, if they do, and Utah, I could see these schools running the other program as well. So it'd be interesting. So yeah, they could say the history books that the Pac-12 died, but if these teams go on to form the nucleus of other conferences, and quite frankly, maybe even start challenging the establishment in both these conferences, is it really dead, or they just split the army and invaded on 2 fronts? Who knows? Who knows what the future is going to bring? I do know that anyone's trying to say that Tony, Rick, and myself are crying or upset or bitter. Man, I know we're going to the Big 10. I now know we're bringing Washington, Oregon with us. So now we have 4 Pac-12 teams going into the Big 10. Times are great. And I would tell people in the Big 10 and the Big 12, you guys, you're inviting us in. And as maybe it's a reverse Trojan horse, Tony. This is going to be a reverse Trojan horse. And I can't wait to see what these programs do in these conferences.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Hey, to all of my friends, and you're probably not watching, but colleagues, family, exes, neighbors, coworkers I've had so many of you guys that have been from UW and UO, and all really great folks. We tease the Ducks on social media a lot, but I've had so many great friends from both of them, and I am personally thrilled to have you guys joining us in the Big Ten. It really makes me feel good that you'll be there. I do truly, sincerely hope that if not immediately, then it's in the soonest time in the future that UC Berkeley and Stanford also join us, because I think the six of us belong together. To my Beavs and Wazoo friends, you guys are amazing. You deserve better than what's happening right now, 120%. And I really also believe that the football gods are going to find a way to take care of you guys too. If the Big 12 is half as smart as they think they are, they will absolutely make sure you guys are a part of this. So, but back again, focus tonight. This is USC Trojans Live. So we are excited about the future of the Big Ten. Welcome Dogs, welcome Ducks, and to everyone, fight on and have a wonderful night.